Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're recording. We are live right now. This is, what the hell is this? This is the OnTrack podcast with DJ Traction. Of course, our co-host, Eric Foxy Jackson. And we have a special guest today that I will let him introduce himself.
How you guys doing today? My name is Matthew Duquesne. I am an English lecturer at Tennessee State University here in Nashville, Tennessee. So, on the phone with the boys, let's see where this goes.
Well, it's
As
funny.
you can tell, he's a robot.
Yeah. He's joining us on Skype. We usually have live people in here. I mean, he's still alive, but he's just we're like patching it in.
Halloween themed, back from the dead.
So it's like we have Bender on the podcast. So actually, since you just mentioned that you are in Nashville, I know like you're a big hip hop fan and stuff, and try to incorporate that when you teach a little. How being like that type of fan and now living in Nashville, like I know they definitely have a hip hop scene there, but how do you maybe compare it to what they're known for, which is it's fucking country music.
Well, that's it's interesting you bring that up because really, people we don't really call it Country Music City, USA here. It's more Music City, and you would really be surprised how many different types of acts make it. Additionally, we have here at Middle Tennessee State University, which is a different branch of our state university system, we have recording style degrees, audio engineering, etc. So people who descend on Music City is not just to blow up in country music like you think. So we actually have a lot going on here to support all music scenes. Obviously, not getting the kind of lyrical hip hop that we like back home, but all kinds of things coming out of here in the near future.
When he says back home, he means New York. Just wanna put that out there. You know what? Maybe it's not as abundant as it might be with like the quote unquote New York or East Coast rappers. But there are some people that can get down and spit, man. Like to me, I think T.I. is like really lyrical. Obviously, he's not from Tennessee; he's from Atlanta. But I mean, down south, it all has that same stigma of not being like smart rap or however you might put it. But man, T.I. can get down.
Yeah, but some of the MCs from Tennessee, for instance, Big 3-6 Mafia, I think they kind of created that semi-comical flow. Didn't take themselves too seriously, and they profited pretty well from that. Yeah. So there's certainly different things that have come out of the South that are very good. Outkast, another.
Outkast. Yeah. Andre 3000 is awesome, and it sucks because Andre 3000 is so awesome that sometimes it overshadows how awesome Big Boy really is.
Yeah,
too.
I was gonna say, but I consider Big Boy kind of like the shining element of that, and I think he's a little undersung. Especially like when they did the Split album, what was it, Love Below and Speaker
and
Box?
The Speaker Box, yeah.
I thought Speaker Box was a lot more like coherent of an album, whereas Love Below was just, it seemed like Andre 3000 had a lot of fun in the studio there. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people disagree with me. I got into actually a huge fight. People saying like Love Below was the superior album, and I couldn't get anyone to back me saying Speaker Box is like amazing. What he does with an 808 system is just like amazing. And what's the head track there? Ghetto Music. Or I think it's the second track.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Way You Move is like the lead single. For that one, but even just like his guest spots and stuff, he's on that Janelle Monáe song, Tightrope, and he just comes in with a fucking awesome 16, kills it. He's like, all right, it's like he just like brushes his hands off, like.
He also makes ATL watchable as the antagonist. I like his acting quite a bit as well.
Yeah. You know what? It was funny. I remember seeing that movie and I was like, I can't believe it's about roller skating. It was pretty much what it broke down to. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought it was gonna be more like Juice or something like that. And then I'm like, it's Saturday Night Fever with hip hop. I'm like wonderful.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty traditional though. So if you wanted to talk about some aspects of culture, maybe that's why we think that movie's a little bit different. But not bad at the same time either, though.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. I definitely didn't think it was a bad movie. It was just the funny little kind of the point of it. You know what I'm saying, or like the focus around it.
I just start laughing. That movie is pretty ridiculous. I'm sorry.
You know what sucks too? Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I remember seeing this and not thinking it was okay, and then you might watch it 5 years later. You're like, holy shit, did I say I like this movie?
I haven't seen ATL, but I've only heard kind of not great things.
I mean, it's not like, again, it's not a Boys in the Hood. It's not a Juice. It doesn't like stand out as like, damn, this is good. There's nothing new in it really. Doesn't bring up any new concepts or anything like that. It's just, an average but well-made average movie, I'd say.
Well-made average movie.
Nothing special, but nothing terrible. Where it's like, holy shit, I can't believe somebody made this. Like that fucking Pain and Gain movie that we talked about the other day.
Kind of movie that you come out of and you go, oh, that happened.
It's your boy Michael Bay, and that actually did happen, that story. Pain and Gain, I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, and it was funny because I actually didn't know it was Michael Bay when I started it, and then when I shut it off and it was on Netflix, so it came up like, Michael Bay and stuff was in the little thing. And I was like, well, it makes a little sense.
That makes more sense now.
Yeah, I totally could tell by the shots and everything.
It's funny because a couple days after you had mentioned how horrible that movie was, someone else was saying that like that movie was super fun and like it was nice. I still haven't seen it.
You should not be that person's friend anymore.
I don't know if I would describe the movie as nice in any way.
No, I mean, like, yeah, it wasn't Wizard of Oz nice. It was like, it was something that you could sit through and like, just feel like it was fun.
I couldn't even sit through it.
No?
I shut it off halfway through. I couldn't sit through it. And it's very rare that I shut off a fucking movie like I can't take it anymore.
Was it just ridiculous or was it boring or?
A little of all. Definitely ridiculous as fuck. And this is coming from someone who doesn't mind like comic book movies and stuff like that, who loves those. So it's like a different type of ridiculousness.
I might be able to get into it. I've recently been watching the show Eureka, and that was like, it was on the... What'd you say?
With the puppets on Nickelodeon?
No, that's yeah, Eureka's Castle. Imagine I was just like, yeah, I've been brushing up on Eureka's Castle. The lore of it's amazing.
That is my man.
It's really appealing now that I'm older.
No, there was the show Eureka for a while on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it was like just like it's kind of silly Monster of the Week show, but like it was like, instead of it being a Monster of the Week, it was like a science failure of the week, and like it was the small city of like super scientists basically, and it's like it's quirky and funny, but it's like it's so poorly put together at times that like I can't really hate on anyone for liking anything. It's just like it's really fun to me to watch for some reason.
Is that was it a sci-fi like original?
Yeah, it was a sci-fi original series. It ran for like 4 years. It was I don't know.
That's the only problem. Like every time I see something for like a sci-fi original series or movie or something, it always seems pretty intriguing. The thing that always kills it for me is like the production value is usually shit.
The production value's all right on it. The writing's a little forced sometimes. So it seems a little, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer-ish, where like everyone really hits their mark on every single line, and you're like, all right, yeah, I understand. You're in a TV show. So, I've been trying to suspend disbelief, and I don't know, I've been enjoying the show. It's silly.
No doubt.
The show I like on Sci-Fi is WWE SmackDown. Suspended disbelief for that one, too.
You know what's weird? Is like when I see people that are over... I mean, really, even over 20. But if they're over 25 and they get really, really excited about professional like WWE wrestling, I'm just like, what is going on in your life?
Yeah.
Where you're you have so much invested into this still. Like that shit ran its course for me by the time I was probably 12 or 13.
Well, they recycle all the stories every 6 years.
It's like a really...
Well, the stories are very complex, so...
I mean, it's worse than a soap opera. Like
it is kind of like a soap opera for men,
without a doubt, but it's way worse.
I was going to say, in defense of WWE, it is a soap opera.
Yeah, it is. No, without a doubt. That's what I'm saying. It totally is. It's just, I don't know, man. I guess I fail to see the appeal after whatever age where you like are on your own in life. I guess when you're like a kid, it makes sense. You don't know any better. It's like. It looks awesome, and I'm not taking anything away from the athletic ability of these people, because that's no joke. just because, the outcome might be pre-planned or something like that. What they go through is for real. They have to do the moves. They get hurt. They're doing it night in, night out. They're touring. That's why the drug problem is so prevalent in the industry and stuff like that, because they're destroying their bodies. So they get credit for that shit. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm kind of just talking.
Building acrobats.
They're awesome. I'm just talking shit about the people that are so fucking excited about it. It's like, I can't believe that happened. Did you hear what he said about him? Oh my god, what's gonna happen next week? When you're like 30 years old, it's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is,
you just described reality television too, so
yeah, exactly. Like, I do the same hating, but at the same time, like, people watch, 2.5 Men and stuff like that, and I can't really say that the wrestling people are the only people in society that are at fault. But yeah, I definitely do my same, like, hating. Like, it kind of becomes strange after a while when, like, you have that, like, obsession with, like, oiled up men that are, like, throwing themselves at each other, and
we're talking about the NBA now.
But you know what? My girlfriend does the same thing about, like, me watching, like, UFC and stuff. Like, she just sees it as, like, men hugging each other. Like, when they're doing, like, serious grappling, she just sees it as, like, men hugging each other. She can't, like, see what's actually going on there. And, like, so, maybe there's just something there seeing it in it that I don't see. But I definitely don't see it.
Well, the only, like, thing I can say about that is that if you don't know what's going on in an MMA fight or something like that, and they're grappling, I can see how it looks the same, but there is actual things that are going on that are, it's like a little chess game.
Yeah.
And with moves that actually have a purpose and that work. In wrestling, it's not quite the same.
Well, I was saying more just the
perspective of
the men rubbing all over each other. That's yeah.
But I can see, like, getting, like, if you're knowledgeable about it, getting excited seeing that happen, and I can't believe I just used the word excited when we're talking about men crawling on each other, but whatever. As far as the moves go, in wrestling it's a little different because even if they, like, half the time they're not real moves that would work in real life. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing practical that you could use for either self-defense or being on the offensive. Yeah. Like, it's not going to work. So when somebody has, like, whatever type of hold on and, like, they're just cheering and you got Hulk Hogan shaking his arm like, yeah, give me the power, like he's He-Man to get out of it. It's like you wouldn't use that in an MMA fight at all because it's not doing anything.
So there's no invincible star in the MMA.
Well, there is that one person fighting the MMA that's undead. Remember that? No one really addresses that.
How awesome would it be if there was, like...
just Yamada Yoshida was just also, like, half vampire.
It's like he really was, like, half zombie or something. It'd be kind of cool.
The Korean zombie we're talking about.
Yeah. Since it is coming up on Halloween, I've been watching a whole bunch of horror movies on Netflix that are, like, on these lists of, like, hey, the best horror movies to watch right now.
So, like, real horror movies?
That are available. And, yeah, being Netflix is not like there's a whole... And it's the streaming Netflix, let's say. So there's really... I don't know. They put not the greatest movies on there. Like, if you're ordering the DVDs, then that's fine. You can get anything you want. But the streaming one is pretty limited in what they have that's actually good on it. But
yeah, you know how they do that? It's just the shows from Encores and Stars.
There are some hidden gems, though. I went through the list, and I went through about at least 4 of the movies so far, and some of them are kind of like, and that I've seen before. Like, World War Z was on it, and I'm like, that was whatever. That wasn't, it just didn't stand out as a good zombie movie or a horror movie to me, but whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider that like a Halloween movie.
Yeah, I've heard... It's weird because I heard positive things about The Cabin in the Woods, and that movie fucking sucked.
What? Are you kidding me? That movie was awesome.
Stupid, yeah.
I don't really like this genre.
Well, no, that's the thing, is it's supposed to be making fun of horror movies. That's the whole point of the movie.
I guess it kind of works in that. It works in that where, I mean, because it's...
Wait, so were you watching it the whole time thinking that it was like a serious horror movie?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, it was 100% like a joke.
I'm pretty sure it was like a Funny or Die movie?
Yeah, like it was written by by Joss Whedon, who's like the guy who writes like, Buffy, but now he writes the Avengers movies and stuff like that. The whole movie was was a joke, like making fun of like the archetypes in horror movies and like kind of saying why they exist. I thought that movie was great.
And actually,
I watched it like 2 or 3 times now. Actually.
It does make sense in that terms because it, like I said, is pretty ridiculous. So
yeah, it's like it's super ridiculous.
And I was just thinking how I was just equated being like younger and being really into wrestling, and then at a certain age you're like, all right, you should probably get past it. I feel the same way with horror movies in a way where like I loved horror movies as a kid, and some of them would genuinely kind of freak me out. And as you get older, as I got older, I felt like, oh man, horror movies suck now. Yeah. But then I think what it is just again just being young, you like it more. Like you're just maybe a little more naive. Certain things just work on you. And then when you get older, you're like, even the ones I like, they're kind of fucking stupid.
Yeah.
You know? But that being said, I found one that was pretty cool. Just talking about ones that make fun of themselves. You're Next is kind of like that too.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Not bad. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like awesome serious movie. It was just enjoyable. But it definitely didn't take itself too seriously. You know? It just didn't let itself go like Cabin in the Woods did. But one that I just saw was called The House of the Devil, and it was surprisingly pretty creepy, and I would actually say a good horror movie, like worth seeing. It was made in 2009, but it's shot like it takes place in the 80s, and it's shot like an 80s horror movie.
Huh.
So like it has some really cool like cinematography like that, and there's no
CGI.
Yeah, no CGI at all. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It's real, and that's what cool. It gives it a grittiness and stuff. Everything from the sound too, and all that. And you'll pick out the shots. Like, yep, that is fucking 80s horror movie right there.
That's definitely been one thing for me that's ruined horror movies is bad CG. Because I like I said, I think I have like CG savantism because I just spot bad CG like it's like a boner in a dress, you know. And and I you know. So, yeah, when you see, like, I was watching, I don't remember what Guillermo del Toro movie it was, but it was one of his, like, you know, creepier, like, you know, just, like, sort of ghost movies, and it was completely ruined by parts that had just bad CG, and, like, I'm sure it would have been scary if they could have figured out some way to do it that looked believable, but it was just so bad looking that, like, it made me laugh. Like, it was, like, it looked so silly, you know? And I think CG has really, like, just made a lot of movies, like, horrible.
And it's also when they, not only is it bad, they keep it on screen for way too long.
Yeah.
So you get to really pick out and pick it apart how bad and kind of ridiculous it looks. And you're like, well, this went from a horror movie to quite a comedy.
Yeah, that's why I either like stuff where it's a complete mystery what the monster is, like they barely show it, or where it's like, you know, Rick Baker did the effects and like it looks fucking amazing and like, you know, like the creature effects are so great that you don't even want to like think twice about it being fake, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, that being said, if anybody listens to this and has recommendations for good horror movies, send them my way. Drop it on Twitter or an email or something like that. Because I still enjoy the hunt of looking for a good horror movie, and I get disappointed a lot because there are a lot of shitty ones.
Can I say what my favorite 80s horror movies are?
Does Gremlins count as a horror movie? We never established that.
No, I don't think that's horror. I think that's
Christmas.
Yeah, it's definitely a Christmas movie. Okay, so I think first of all, Hellraiser. I love the Hellraiser series.
Oh, you know what's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's one of the ones I watched too. And it was so funny. I'm reading this guy's write-up because I never really watched Hellraiser. Never seen any of them. And I'm like, I'm reading this guy's write-up, and he's like, you know, a lot of them just don't hold up from the 80s or from the past.
Like Hellraiser 3, you know, he's like shooting CDs and stuff. Like, it's silly.
No, but this is specifically about the first one. And he's like, a lot of them don't hold up, but this one's fucking scary, and it's still good, and blah, 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 blah. And I watched it, and I was like, this is what this movie's about? I was like, you think this holds up? And I just watched it like maybe 5 days ago.
I don't think it holds up as much as it's just like, it's really like, I don't know, I think they're fun movies to watch. I don't think they're necessarily scary as much as they have like creepy characters and stuff. I love the Cenobites and stuff. They all have like good design. I love Pumpkinhead. That was a good
I remember
movie.
that one. Yep.
That one was good. And I had another one that like I love, and for whatever reason I can't think. Oh, and The Puppet Master, which is horrible movies, but I love them. They have something very close to me inside, and I love them.
And you know why I think that is because
I'm German.
I remember that one, and the one that has that effect on me was Ghoulies. And you know why it was?
Ghoulies.
Not because it's a fucking good movie, but it's because just the time of like where I was at life when I kept watching it all the time when it was always on. Like I just remember that as a pretty fun and cool time. Like I was really young and shit, but I think that's what it goes to. Like you just equate it with stuff that you enjoyed during that time. And we had talked about it, you and me, Matt, a little with music. You know how we think that some of the hip hop out today is kind of garbage and everything, but to somebody who's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever it is, they're going to take some of those, and one of those songs, like a Kendrick Lamar song or something like that, Pour Up, Drank, like that's going to be somebody, like that album's going to be somebody's Reasonable Doubt to us, or Illmatic even. Not, yeah, I'm not saying that it is to me or whatever, but you think of why some of those albums, what they were to us at the time. You know, maybe you're just kind of finding yourself, you're at that age, you're just getting into like your own type of music and stuff, of finding what you like and relating to it however you are. Like there's definitely a 16-year-old listening to that song being like, yeah, I just got wasted like that for the first time last week. You know, so that's gonna like carry with him throughout his whole life. So now when he hears it 10 years later, that's gonna be his jam. Like when we hear fucking Hypnotize or something, you know, it's gonna have that same like that visceral feeling that you equate it with something that happened good in your life or whatever it was. You know,
Yes, sir.
not that like I'm gonna hear that song in 10 years and be like, yeah, this is my shit, but it goes the same way because all those songs that we loved, like. The older heads or whatever were talking shit about the songs that we liked, you know? About, you know, the materialistic of Jay-Z's songs and stuff like that, or even Nas's second album and all that shit. But that's our shit. To us, we're like, you know, that stuff is awesome, you know? So.
Show.
What up?
I said for sure, definitely. However, what are we talking about? Horror films now?
Hey, I gave you the warning. It goes wherever.
It's a 1 month a year genre, so you're gonna get 1 out of 12 is gonna be good.
Yeah, and again, with some of them, I guess maybe not taking themselves like seriously. That's the thing. I guess I'm looking for a serious horror movie, you know, and that just nails it all the way through. And it's just hard to find.
I haven't seen a good serious horror movie in a while, you know? I feel like not many of them really, like, scare me anymore. And I don't know, like you were saying, if that's about, like, my age or if that's just about horror movies or what. But, yeah, I don't know.
Nothing is really shocking anymore either, so it's difficult to make a horror film nowadays. I'm showing my class the 1931 Frankenstein. People were passing out in the theater at the sight of Boris Karloff, and now it's just like, this is a horror film.
Yeah. The Exorcist has that same effect too. Like, I know just hearing from like my parents and everybody of that generation, like how just crazy that movie was, and same thing, people throwing up in the movie theater, stuff like that, and you watch it now, like if you saw it for the first time as like an 18-year-old right now in 2014, you would probably just laugh at that movie.
Yeah, that movie did make me laugh when I was probably like 15.
Yeah.
I saw it for the first, or whenever they did the anniversary of that movie and they re-released it with like a couple added scenes, I saw it for the first time then, and I was laughing. It literally looked like she was sitting there with toothpaste on her face, you know, screaming, and she actually looked like a friend of mine, so it made it even funnier. And yeah, like the whole thing was just silly, with the exception of in the beginning when the mom is walking through the house, like, and like the lights are out, I guess, and like the lights flash for a second and you see like that little devil face. That scared the shit out of me for whatever reason, and like that should have set the tone for the rest of the movie and made me scared, but it didn't. And since I've seen like a freeze frame of that face, it's hysterical. It is like one of the funniest things in the world. And they probably put so much work into making that face pop up there for a second and be so scary. And it's really silly looking.
What it reminds me of now when I see that face, actually, especially the still shot, it's like one of the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah!
That's exactly what it looks like. And like not even like it's a person, like the actual doll. Like it looks like a doll's face. I was gonna say something off of that shit. I don't remember what it was. I think something like you see like the culture change too, how everything moves forward and you become less like sensitized to certain language. Because I could see in the 70s what she's saying being like, holy crap, that's shocking, you know. But again, you watch it in 2014 or 2010 or modern times, and you start laughing. You're like, holy shit. I think I was laughing because like, not like I can't believe that she said that back then, but it was just kind of funny. Like it didn't come off as like shocking or like pushing the envelope or anything. I was just laughing like, yo, that's pretty funny that they they put that in there. But she's like, you know, she has like the crucifix and she's like, fuck me and all this other crap. I was like, holy shit, really? And it was kind of comical. It was a little funny.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to metal music, so that wasn't too shocking for me when I was like 16.
Yeah.
You know?
I heard Ghostface Killer Wildflowers when I was fucking like 14. So that shit, that type of language, that song is way worse than anything that was going on in The
Josh,
Exorcist.
We were 10 years old. We could still grab I remember I bought Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style at the Thruway Market without my dad. I was like 9 years old. So, I mean, you know, also, speaking on that, they used to censor The Simpsons. The Ain't Nothing But a Gangster Party video was also censored for, you know, very minor words on T-shirts. And now we look at these movies and it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Movies, like, I feel like now, to shock people, they just do, like, gore porn movies. Like, it's just, like, you know, these Eli Roth, like, Hostel, like, you know, more gore than movies. Where, like, you know, sometimes they'll make it something that seems, you know, somewhat within reach, like with The Strangers, which I don't know that movie was really gore porn or anything, but with The Strangers, like, they just chose it for, like, a random reason, like, just because you were home, I think they say is the reason. You know, like, a movie like that, like, it can kind of shake you to your core because, like, there was no motivation, like, there was no, like, stupid kids at a cabin doing something they shouldn't or whatever, like, it was, like, you know, you're just backpacking through Europe or whatever at Hostel.
Like random acts of violence, basically.
Yeah, basically. And those ones for me are a little,
Although,
you know, scarier.
I mean, not to detract from your point, but Hostel kind of had a point because it's like they needed basically people to torture. So like it was an industry, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're like, all right, well, it was almost like the movie Taken, but for a different industry.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, we'll take these people because the fuck ain't no one coming from America to come find them. You know. So, but yeah, overall, I definitely agree with that. It's just like it's just the shock and all of it because they have to. Since the like the baseline has been pushed up so far, like that you can't be down here anymore. It's not gonna have any impact whatsoever. So.
Yeah, I think the best sort of like Halloween sort of movies are dark or you know, horror movies are now like kind of dark comedies. I think those are the best sort of movies where like they make light of the situation or whatever, and you know they add some sort of humor to it while also having, you know, some scary effects or whatever. Like I saw this movie, John Dies at the End, and it was really what'd you say?
It's a book first.
Yeah, it was a book first. Yeah, and then they made it into a film, and then they I think they were trying to make the sequel into a film as well. But
does John die in the end again?
I don't want to disclose, and I actually don't even remember because I feel like they might have made him not die, which seems kind of
anticlimactic.
Yeah, but I guess it's sort of what you end up expecting at that point. But it was good in that it was really silly, and some parts were just really over the top. But there were parts that were sort of, you know, scary, quote unquote.
They're like what I don't get about that is kind of like when they had the movie The Last Exorcism, and then they came out with The Last Exorcism 2. It's like it's so contradictory right there. Like how could you come out? Agree on a movie and be like, yeah, let's just call it The Last Exorcism Part 2. Or like, what the fuck? Like that's what you came up with?
First Blood 2.
Yeah, exactly. Some that do kind of hold up as far as like the last time I saw them, I kind of felt like they held up. Again, might have been 5 years ago, so I might watch it tomorrow and be like, ah, shit, I just said that held up, and it kind of sucks. But the original Halloween, I remember seeing that one a lot, and it always being pretty. It's good.
I've always felt like the amount of like suspense to the amount of movie in that wasn't enough for me, and it never really got me at all.
Okay.
I remember Poltergeist being really scary, now that I think of it, but I feel like it would probably be silly now if I watched it.
You know which one I remember being scary when I was young, and it's obviously ridiculous? The Gate. I don't know if you remember that one.
Going back to the Poltergeist, I think the thing that scares me is actually that obese lady with the really high-pitched voice. The light! Go into the... I think that lady was what scared me. But The Gate, I don't think I've ever heard of that.
You should look it up. Again, don't look it up like I just said it was a good movie and you should watch it. Don't look it up just and maybe try to put yourself in like, 80s horror movie and I'm 8 years old. Try to watch it like how you told me to watch Pacific Rim.
Oh man, that movie is so funny.
Watch The Gate in the same way.
Okay,
like an 8-year-old.
All right. I think
if you can get yourself to that mindset and watch it, you should enjoy it. You should be good because it was creepy. I even liked the first two Friday the 13th. I thought the first one was fucking pretty creepy, and so was the second one. I can't say if they held up or not. It's just I'm going off memory. As far as a recent one, I really liked House of a Thousand Corpses, even though it's not like recent, like the last 5 years, but more of a modern time.
Yeah, those Rob Zombie ones are they're creepy.
And that's what it was.
Yeah,
it was pretty creepy, and I remember being genuinely pretty like freaked out the first time I saw it. And I was like probably 22 or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I didn't see it when it first came out. Like this was like been on DVD for a while and stuff like that. So. I remember seeing The Devil's Rejects in the theater and having no idea that it was a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses. And I'm like, and I enjoyed The Devil's Rejects. I thought it was a pretty cool movie. And I remember saying, like, there's a scene where they're talking to the crazy family or whatever, and it's in the police station, and they're showing a flip book of all like this terrible shit that happened in some house. And I was like, I remember leaving the movie, and I was like, that was cool, but what would have made an awesome movie is showing everything that happened in that house. And my friend looks at me like I'm a fucking idiot. And he's like, yeah, that was the first one. That's House of a Thousand Corpses. I'm like, okay. I thought this was just another Rob Zombie movie. I didn't know it was a sequel. They should have, it was like The Last Exorcism. They should have just called it House of 1,001 Corpses.
House of 1,001 Dalmatians.
Yeah, that would, I'd watch that, I think. I had a Dalmatian.
Oh my god.
No, because I had a Dalmatian growing up, so...
That's a thing for me with movies, is I can watch people get filleted, like you could see the person in Silent Hill get their skin ripped off, like, I could watch anything, but if a dog gets killed, that's like endgame for me right there. Actually, I think the only person who really dies in that movie, Secret Window, which I thought that was a kind of fun movie.
Which one is that?
With
that
Johnny Depp.
All right, yeah. I saw that. That was pretty good.
The movie was fun.
Yep.
The only person I think gets killed in that movie is his dog, and I was like, oh man, why'd you have to kill the dog? But I guess it's a good way to be like, that's the last straw, That's what that whole movie John Wick is about, right? Is he retired and like he basically came out of retirement because his dog, who he loved, who was like a gift from his dying wife, got kidnapped.
You know what would have made that movie better?
That was Ron Burgundy on Anchorman.
yeah. Baxter! He punted him. It would have been great. Like, I didn't see John Wick yet, but I feel like they should have just made that movie with DMX and somebody killing his dog. And he should have been the one getting revenge on everyone.
They just continue barking throughout the whole movie.
That's my man's in there.
And that's another one, there was a lot of good fucking albums that came out while, like, that 94 to, like, 2001, 2002, like, there was a lot of good shit going on.
Is DMX still putting out music? He found God, right?
He actually, yes.
Found crack. I don't know about God.
He put out something pretty kind of recently. He had a couple singles floating around. I think he's supposed to be actually releasing a whole album, or maybe it did get released. And
was that a real thing?
Yeah, I remember hearing a song with him and Machine Gun Kelly, actually. And that wasn't that long ago.
Like Detox.
Yeah, right? I give up all hope on Detox. Whenever anyone talks about it, I'm like, bullshit.
I'm not watching out for anything anymore.
Yeah, I'm like, until it comes out, I don't give a shit. And you know what's so crazy? Is like, if it ever does come out, and even, let's just say, it's just as good as 2001 Chronic was, or the original Chronic, it seems like everything just has a very short shelf life where people don't care after a week or so. And even if it's awesome. You know, we kind of talked about it when we were did a little practice run to get all this audio stuff right. But definitely that back in the day, that Busta Rhymes and Eminem song, like, that would have been one of the type of songs that, like, Streets went crazy about, was on, like, all the different mixtapes and everything, and would have lasted a long time. Now, like, I didn't hear anything about that song after it dropped. Like, it dropped, listened to it, and that was it. You know? You didn't hear anything else about it after that. And I'm not saying, like, it's, like, either one of their best songs or anything like that, but it was that type of song that would have been, like, a mixtape killer, you know? And
sure.
It's just, it's like, as soon as it drops, it's over.
On to the next one.
Just like that sentence. As soon as I dropped it, and bam, and it's over.
Yeah, I don't know, but I feel like there's been this weird thing lately where, and I don't know, obviously I didn't live through many other generations other than my own, but, you know, I feel like there's been a weird thing lately where people just stay kind of in the zeitgeist and they don't really leave it anymore. Like, I realize that Lady Gaga has been around for actually a really long time, and a lot of these musicians now are just they've kind of come out and they've just stayed around. And, like, there hasn't really been much of, like, a complete shift in paradigm, and I'm not really sure why that is. I feel like in previous generations it kind of would have already been someone else's generation, whereas my generation has sort of turned into the younger people's generation. Like, I had middle schoolers that listened to Beyonce. Beyonce was in Destiny's Child when I was in middle school. You know, like, so it seems strange to me that, like, not a lot of this has moved. I'm pretty sure Lady Gaga was one of my graduation songs, and now, like, little kids still love Lady Gaga like it's their thing. Which I don't want to be like, Lady Gaga's my thing, bitches. Step off.
I think, but with those type of artists that have, like, sold so many albums on, they're, like, are huge stars, it probably happens more so with them than just, like, your run-of-the-mill or average artists.
Yeah.
You know, just thinking off the top of my head. Because those two are obviously, like, they're huge, you know what I'm saying? They've, even in an era where record sales suck balls, and Lady Gaga's recent one didn't sell anything, but...
Did it really? I didn't know.
Yeah, it did really bad. And they spent, like, $1 billion on it. It was, like, a mess. Probably not really $1 billion, but you know what I'm saying. What the fuck was I talking about?
I actually don't listen to you. I say a lot of conveniently placed remarks that hopefully make sense in the sentence.
But yeah, they're, like, huge artists that even with crappy record sales, like, they're still out there. They sell a lot of records. Her most recent one, not counting or whatever. But so they have that chance to crush generations and everything. A run-of-the-mill artist probably isn't going to do that, you know? Because you could say kind of the same thing about Jay-Z, but again, he's really huge, especially not even just as far as hip-hop artists go, but as far as artists go and pop culture, like, he's like the fucking man, you know? So stuff like that can give you some longevity and crossover power from generations.
Also, I just don't think radio spins matter that much anymore. Because the internet, any kind of niche music, people are just going to buy it from the niche music site. They don't need things to play on the radio anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's still that subsection of people who, like, listen to the radio, and, like, I mean, all my middle school students knew the song Royal, who I'd say actually that's one person who's come into the zeitgeist lately, is Lorde.
Yeah.
And, like, she didn't exist when I was younger.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is they're only going to put very safe sort of contemporary music is what they're going to introduce into the spectrum. Rather than anything that would kind of be edgy, they could just sell as its own, you know, packaged product in some niche market.
It is hard when you talk about the radio, though, especially nowadays, because it's now only owned by, like, 2 or 3 companies own, like, 98% of the radio stations. So they're just
Clear Channel and Cumulus.
Yeah, so they're basically force-fed all these playlists, and they all have the same. I mean, this is only going to make sense to people in New York, I guess, but you could tell the difference when on Hot 97, not only did Mr. C, Old School at noon, Throwback at noon, he stopped playing throwbacks pretty much. Like, they'd have regular current songs in the rotation there, when it used to just be an hour of him doing whatever he wanted with throwbacks. Now they're putting, like, regular rotation songs in there, and they started playing EDM house music on Hot 97.
What?
Yes, like Avicii Levels got mad burn on Hot 97.
You know what though?
You
know what though? I will say that's kind of like contrast what I was saying before, and I feel like it's kind of a good thing. Like a new paradigm is like taking over the old one. Like for me, like there's been just channels that have been, because I listen to more like rock music and stuff like that. The channels that they have like haven't changed at all for like the longest time. There hasn't actually even been like a rock star since like Jack White, who's from like, I listened to him in middle school. Like
yeah, I think that
there's Asheville.
I think that might have a little to do just with like, I feel like the hot genre, it just always kind of changes from whether it's decade to decade or whatever it is. So it just so happens like you just don't see as much in the rock category. I feel,
I feel like it. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the new rock acts they're doing small venue shows, and they're making their money off shows and merch, not so much the radio.
And again, it's going to be hard unless you're a major label person, because again, they push exactly what they want to push on the radio, being that it's basically a monopoly. So it's going to be hard to break in there. Like I've heard not only the way that they pushed Iggy Azalea and stuff, but even certain Rihanna songs and everything, just like the mechanics and the gears that work behind all these songs getting on the radio. Like you almost have no shot if you're just like an independent up and coming, especially rock band, when that genre is not really doing as well. And also a lot of those, there are some I don't know if you'd call it rock or alternative or what kind of band they really are, but a lot of them are incorporating like that EDM sound.
Yeah.
Or playing their rock at a BPM that can easily be mashed up with EDM music. What's the Pumped Up Kicks band? What the fuck is their name? I just had it in my head.
And they've been around for a while too.
There's this group, Breathe Carolina.
People have been doing that forever, though.
Yeah, there's always been a mix. Yeah, and even with like what I said before about like the generation before kind of always hating on the current generation music for whatever reason it is, it's like all that stuff just keeps happening. It just keeps bumping up a generation.
Yeah, I guess those rock stars are sort of different people for these generations. They're, people who press play, like Skrillex and stuff like that, and, like the dubstep, like Deadmau5 and, those people who are, like DJs and stuff like that. But those damn DJs.
the big thing that plays into it, though, is like it's everything that's happened at once. So the way of consuming music has changed drastically from the 70s, and the 80s, and really even the 90s. So all of that plays into what's going on right now, with what's getting out, what types of music people are playing and everything. All of it just moves it all down a generation. So the one before it can just complain about essentially the same thing almost, just in slightly different terms. So, I mean, you even have like Kiss, like the band Kiss was a huge rock band, but they didn't really kill it on the radio like that. They didn't get mad radio spins and stuff.
Yeah, actually, I think Cracked has an article about like music that we associate with a time that's either not even from that time, or it did like so horrible at the time, but it's kind of become like a cult thing throughout the time. And like bands that we really consider like these like heavy hitting bands of these certain years, like they weren't anywhere on the charts or doing anything that we care about, Yeah,
I think about that a lot. Especially when I DJ with like especially in the for 80s stuff. I don't know why, but it seems like the most prevalent with like some type of late 70s or 80s songs and everything that are, I guess, can be taken as kind of cheesy, but they're still kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's like Blondie or the Bee Gees, certain songs and stuff like that, which fit in certain sets and everything. But you think about it, you're like, was this really, like, I kind of like it and stuff, it has cool groove, whatever it is to it, but was it popping even back then? Yeah. You're like... you
Died in Your Arms Tonight by Cutting Crew.
It's there's so many of them where you're like, I can see how I react to this song is way different than the generation that was right before this song coming out.
Yeah.
You know? And we have that with my generation example would be definitely Bad Boy and Puffy. You know? All those songs that took all the 80s samples and stuff like that, like people always got on them for ripping it off and this and that and everything. But again, if that plays anywhere to us, we're gonna get down to it. If Can't Nobody Hold Me Down or fucking the Mace song drops, you're gonna be like, yo, that's my shit. You know, and
they're not hating on Mace even to this day.
But when they dropped, they were getting so much flack for like just jacking it, you know, just like jacking 80s beats and not really rapping anything over it almost, you know. So it's a weird line there, and I think it really is just that generation thing.
Yeah, but I guess you said that you were wondering if it was representing the people at the time. Then I definitely feel like that No Way Out type of stuff does represent, what we were doing at the time.
I think Mace is definitely a person who's indicative of a certain period of time where, where there was a Puff Daddy and things like that, and,
It's just like MC Hammer, like indicative of a time. You know what I'm saying? Like that time was MC Hammer time.
Agreed. Yeah.
No pun intended there. But I don't even know what I was going to say off of that.
It was funny I was, speaking of people who are indicative of a time, I was reading about Sir Mix-a-Lot, and I didn't realize that, like, he had a hit kind of before Baby Got Back that wasn't really as popular, but it still was, like, a charting song, but everyone knew him from Baby Got Back. And then he couldn't really attain that same success with any other song, but before that he was trying to be like a DJ, and like he didn't really know where he was gonna fit.
No, finish. Finish your thought.
Yeah, no, take over.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's that's why like making songs is cool and stuff, but you really got to have like the business side down to it too, where he pretty much can live off of that song. You know what I'm saying? For like the rest of his life, if his publishing is right.
Yeah.
You know, especially, I mean, you never know when it's going to be used for a commercial or
that was recently sampled by What's Her Face.
I was just going to say, or when a big current artist is going to sample your track. You know? Same thing. I remember seeing something with Rick James talking about how much he made from MC Hammer doing Can't Touch This. Because it was the sample of Super Freak. So, and he made a shitload of money off of that shit.
I never would have guessed that there was actual attribution for that. I would have guessed that was just like a, oops, like, I didn't really notice, sort of thing.
Vanilla Ice tried to do that to Queen, and he got Under Pressure sample in Ice Ice Baby and got sued pretty badly.
That's one of the best interviews ever, is listening to him trying to explain it.
Yeah, he's like, no, but mine is do-do-do-do-do-do.
He's like, I remember that like so clear how he was doing it. He was like, no, if you listen closely, he's like, there's
a hot hat hitting there.
He's like, there, yep. He's like, there's this dun 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 dun, and listen to mine, it's dun 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 dun. Like there's a little hi hat at the end, and he just like sticks to his guns about that being a legit argument, that it's totally different and I didn't rip off their riff.
Well, recently, what's his name, Robin Thicke, like admitted that he just completely stole that song, and that like he
I think he was accused of. Did he? Yeah,
he completely admitted to it now.
But
the Marvin Gaye sample you're talking about?
Yeah. And that he's done that with a bunch of stuff.
Hey, Nas said it best. No Idea's original, and he did it over a Jack beat. He dropped that song off of a Barry White beat. So
yeah, I mean, there's tons of situations where people are constantly redoing things that other people have done, but I always liked, that there was a generation where I felt like they really sort of, I guess every generation has these people, but, I really like when they completely make it their own. If you take a James Brown beat and you make it sound like something completely different, like Public Enemy did, I think it's worth doing. But if you're just completely taking a song and making it just another song, like, I don't know, it doesn't have the same flavor to it.
I agree with that. That's why
it's from the 80s and make it sound so crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you do it like that, it's good. Like there's a new A. Marie song. I don't know when you're gonna listen to this how new it really is, but it has that Jam on It beat. You know, the old school Sugar Hill Gang one, which I think they might have actually. I don't know. I don't think they were the original ones of that beat either. The Apache Jump on It. But it's pretty much just that beat, and like she doesn't really do anything cool or crazy or creative with it. It's like you're just singing over this beat. It's like, it actually pisses me off, especially as a DJ, because to me it dilutes that beat now. It dilutes the original song of me using that because this one is going to be played a lot, you know, and that kind of annoys me. You know that obviously I think we've all heard the quote, you know, good artists borrow but great artists steal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that used to be, like, a huge thing during periods of time of, like, the Renaissance and stuff like that. People would literally copy other art. That's why, actually, like, a lot of times people would be like, we think we have an original Leonardo da Vinci because, like, it'll come from the same time that he was around, and it'll look exactly like his artwork, but we are not sure because he had people studying under him that were basically... You know, what they were doing was recreating his artwork. Mm-hmm. And so, like, you have to find something that you can definitely tell that's 100% him.
Imagine, like, if there was, like, porn stars back then. Like, how would they even try to prove that it wasn't a Da Vinci? And even, like, and back then, his might not have even been worth, like, the same value and stuff like that, but whoever it was of the time where they really want to get a hold of it, how would you even try to prove
well,
that it was there?
You'd look at the writing of Vasari and you'd be like, Vasari says that that Da Vinci had really defined himself by this time. So like, yeah,
it's like, yeah, but he's still alive. Yeah. And maybe that's how. Maybe they just track him down and be like, yo, is this yours? It's like we really need to know, man.
Yeah, you can just be kind of straightforward
money on this. But that's even. I remember like when I was younger, when I started drawing and stuff. It was definitely just all like I used to draw from comic books. I opened a page, saw something I liked, and I would try to recreate it.
Yeah, and that's how most people learn how to draw is recreation and stuff like that. I do want to jump back for a second. Apache is originally by the Incredible Bongo Band in 1973.
Nice.
Well, thank God for that.
Yeah. No, I'm glad they made that. And that's another thing too. That's actually really funny. How I had mentioned that the generation like right before ours, especially in hip hop, and even not just hip hop, because I remember like my mom would talk shit about it, be like, "Yo, that's the fucking song from the '80s," you know? Yeah. Like they would get on them about that, but really, the beginning of hip hop is all about samples. There was no hip-hop without samples. So even the generation that was hating on Puffy for taking 80s samples, they just took 70s samples. That's how it all started, or 60s samples, you know?
Well, it's funny, actually. I put on a song for your cousin once that was a Massive Attack song, and he was like, oh my god, they stole this beat from Rakim. Can you believe it? They stole this beat from Rakim, and he's like flipping out. And then I ended up looking it up. Like, I think it was originally like a Marvin Gaye or like an Al Green song that they... like, both appropriated separately, you know, like...
That's, yeah. It's all, like, you can trace enough of it back to, like, all one thing, almost.
Yeah, it's all just written by James Brown.
Yeah. I hear it in, you can hear it in the drum beat a lot of certain songs, like, you pick out the drums, specifically because you actually can't get any royalties for drums.
Huh.
Like, the rhythm track doesn't matter. It's the melody, the lyrics... The actual drum track doesn't matter. So you could take a drum loop from pretty much anything. That's why use it to your heart's content.
I guess that's why Funky Drummer is so oversampled, because in that James Brown song they cut out everything except for the drums for a period of time, and he does like a little drum solo. So I guess that's why that's so sampled.
Yeah, and it probably is the reason. It's like, oh, we don't have to pay anyone for this shit. Let's just use it.
Once you hear that drum line in Funky Drummer, and you just go out and listen to a bunch of music that would have samples, you'll just hear it non-stop. It's like insane. It's like one of the most popular like break beats that people use. Like,
I get there was a recent Nas song with off the Life Is Good album with Mary J. Blige. What the hell is the name of the song? Reach Out. And like those drums dropping, you're like, oh wait a minute, I know exactly what song this is from.
You know what? And sometimes it's kind of disappointing, because if enough people use that sample, you don't like. It's kind of like you were saying, I guess, like you don't associate that with your song anymore. So like now, like, you know, like, there's a generation of people who might hear, like, Ozzy's Crazy Train and associate it with that Little John song, you know?
Yeah.
Like, or whatever. And, like, slowly that starts fading out of, like, you know, what people consider to be the song that really is that song.
Like I said, it kind of, like, dilutes the value of the song that it came from.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, when you hear, like, an orchestra hit, that might mean something different for different people, especially, like, you both listen to hip-hop more primarily, so, like, you know, that sort of orchestra hit, like, bam sound might have, like, a certain connotation to a certain song or band, but that was created by, like, Yes in the beginning of the 80s, I think. You know, the prog rock band, like, layered all these sounds together, and then people were like, whoa, we can layer all these sounds together, and, like, people learned from that. Almost like, you know, after Inception came out, and everything had that big, like, you know, everything had that big, like, horn that came in, that, like, boom sound, that started just appearing everywhere, and it wasn't so much that, like, everyone was trying to copy them, it was more that everyone was like, wow, that has a lot of power, we never really noticed it. You know, there was the idea that we had this technology that we could do that, like, we knew all theaters would have subwoofers, and we could utilize that to get a certain impact, you know? And, but at the same time, everyone heard that, they're like, oh, it's the Inception sound, you know? I played through Mass Effect 3, and there's these creature called the Reapers, and they make this, like, very low bellowing noise, and it's totally, like, the whole time I would think, oh, Inception, you know? Like...
That's just common in everything, too. If something works, everybody starts using it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, if we're gonna bring it back to hip hop, it's like when the down south sound was real big, then you have New York rappers trying to rap like Southern rappers.
Yeah.
You know, try to get the same, like, inflections in their voice and everything, and using the same style. And it's like, it's a weird line, because again, talking about how everything's based off the sample and using it and flipping it. It's like, well, can you really get mad if someone tries to do it with a flow also? You know? And I could say that I was definitely on the side of, like, yo, don't do that shit. But if you really think about it, it's like, is that the right side to be on it? Like,
yeah.
can you really get that mad on it? Like, where is that line where it's like, okay, borrowing this is cool, but borrowing that is fucking whack?
Yeah, and who didn't, you know, hear, like, a certain group from a certain time and think, oh, wait, we can do this now, you know, and think that that's a possibility and suddenly change what they sound like.
It's, when you look back, it's awesome, too. Sometimes in the moment, like, at the time, you might not realize it, but when you look back at generations and all the music that came out, it's very clear that they all do the same thing, pretty much.
Yeah,
you know,
they're all reacting to everything that happened before that. That's all art is reacting to something that you're given. So you either hear it and go, oh, that's great, let me see how I can attain that dragon that they captured, or, you know, you go the opposite way. You go, wow, that's horrible, people shouldn't be rapping so slow, I need to show people what, you know, real flow and rapping's about, you know, and completely change what's going on, you know, and that's, like... There'll be periods of time where, like, people will have these disputes over, like, no, I came up with this idea first. No, I came up with this idea first. And it's like, no, you both were just reacting to the same thing that's in the zeitgeist. Like, you know, there was a period of time where the Red Hot Chili Peppers were being blamed for copying, like, Mike Patton had a band. And I want to say it was, like, I don't want to misquote myself. So it was a Mike Patton band, and there was basically a feud between them that they were copying each other's sound, and basically it was a matter of, you know, it was a period of time in which white guys from California were hearing Parliament Funkadelic, and they were hearing the Talking Heads, and they were combining those ideas with metal and reacting to that, and they came up with a similar sound, and people were like, oh, they're copying them, and they're copying them, and no, everybody was just being exposed to these things around the same time and reacting to it accordingly, you know?
I do think that's actually pretty funny in hip-hop sometimes, when, like, a certain rapper would be like, oh, that guy's jacking my flow or something like that. It's like, you know, I did that way, I was doing it that way first, or whatever it is. And it's so clearly like, yeah, it might sound alike, but did you really do it first? Did he really listen to you and be like, yeah, I want to rap just like that dude?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's probably, like you said, just being exposed to the same stuff and just using however, like, just taking it all in however you are and putting it back out.
Yeah, it's not a matter of, like, people, like, they discovered Nirvana and suddenly people were like, oh, let's all try to sound like this band. It was more that also, like, once they discovered Nirvana, then all of a sudden, like, record companies were like, oh, this is a big thing. People like this. Let's go look for more people like this. So tons of people were already doing it. They're not reacting to this famous band. They were all reacting to, say, like, Bob Dylan or something and trying to have the same effect.
That's definitely a big thing, too, is labels. Like, I feel like even more so nowadays, though, not even, like, I want to say even back then. Because you always had where, again, something's hot, and then maybe they do find more that are like that, but they also put it together. Like, Motown's actually a pretty good example of that, you know, of putting certain, like, artists and everything together to get certain songs, using same songwriters for, like, everybody, stuff like that, to get basically the same sound. And even with, like the teen idols of back in the day. I don't mean NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and New Kids on the Block, but like the Frankie Avalons and stuff like that. Like, it's very similar to that when you look at it, you know?
But even the same thing, I mean, they were putting together these groups of people intentionally to basically create more of this, like, same hysteria. Like with the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, like, one was first, and then in reaction they created another, and then they started this whole, like, avalanche of boy bands after that, because, like, they not, like, slim to none of those people were, like, guys that were already together, like, oh, we just happen to be muscle-bound guys who love, you know, choral arrangements, and we play at Mulcahy's and Beery's, and we do, you know, our choral arrangement performance. No,
I do that all the time. What are you talking about?
You know, those people were found by Rick Rubin or whatever other, you know, creep, and were put together, and...
I can't believe you just called Rick Rubin a creep!
And, you know, they would am I confusing him with someone?
Yes.
Yes.
Who am I confusing him with?
Rick Rubin is one of the guys who started Def Jam.
Who was the guy who put together all the boy bands back in the day?
I don't know.
And they recently found out, like, he was a creep.
When you say his name, like, I'd be like, oh yeah, it was definitely that dude, but I don't remember it.
I always end up doing that with producers and stuff like that. There was a period of time where I was calling Rick Rubin Ricky Rackman. Do you remember that guy from Headbangers Ball in, like, the 90s?
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Very, very different people.
Yeah, a little bit. And also, I was confusing Russell Simmons and who's the workout instructor?
Russell.
The other Simmons.
God, what the hell is his
Simmons,
name?
Richard Simmons and Russell Simmons, who, as we all know, you know, you never see them in the same place at the same time.
I actually confuse, I do it a lot with Richard Simmons and Gene Simmons. They have similar hair, kind of.
Very similar hair.
Yeah, so it kind of works. But I remember telling a story to somebody, and it was about Gene Simmons, and I said Richard Simmons, and the person's just looking at me so weird. They're like, I can't believe Richard Simmons. There's no way Richard Simmons did that.
Yeah, because nothing that Richard Simmons would do is, like, overlaps with what Gene Simmons would do.
There's
There's
zero
no Venn diagram for that. Like, you know,
exactly.
like, yeah, Richard Simmons is such, like, a upbeat, positive guy, and Gene Simmons is such a fucking Gene Simmons asshole, you know? Like...
That was a nice verb right there. It was actually very Gene Simmons-y of you.
The English lecturer approves.
Not really. Yeah.
Speaking of, we've been in, like, kind of like this music and hip hop discussion for a while. You recently had put something out there about your 10 favorite hip hop albums, and we talked about how it's not like you just got to put out exactly what it is. Your 10 favorite albums. You know, you can't debate with somebody with their list. You know what I'm saying? You see a lot of them, especially magazines, love to put out lists and everything, and probably purposely because it'll create some type of debate in their comments or whatever, get a bunch of views and everything. But at the end of the day, can you ever be wrong? You know, can you be wrong about a list of your favorite albums, your top 10 albums?
It always seems like people want to debate it as such where it is impossible for you to be right and you are almost certainly wrong.
Yeah.
But the only way I can see it is if if you get real specific with it, like the 10 most influential albums or something like that of a certain time period. Because
but influencing on who?
No, exactly. I totally agree with that. It has to be extremely specific to what that list is going to entail. To actually say, okay, we can say that this one was influential because it's like before this album was released, like maybe let's say hip hop wasn't played on these radio stations in these states. And then after it was released, it got X amount of airplay, and now X amount of more hip hop songs were played on the station. Obviously, you got to do a lot of research in it. It's not just like, well, I feel this is a influential album. You'd have to do something like that, like something with like a Public Enemy or whatever. It would be hard to debate against it being an influential album. You know, for what actual subject though, you'd have to define.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we kind of also talked about that enjoyment versus art type of dichotomy that exists. You know.
Yep.
But,
yep. No, go on. Expand on it.
No, I was going to say that's almost impossible because we brought up albums, you know, that everybody, you know, always calls canonical. You know, Rakim's The 17th Letter, anything by like Talib, you know, Black on Both Sides by Mos Def. These are albums that are like, you know, people consider to be high art, but did it really mean anything to you? You know what I mean? Just because they invented technique or brought up something really poignant, does that overshadow your good time that you had with Ain't Nothing But a Gangster Party? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I see the both sides of it where like there's certain songs that are like, and Mos Def is actually a real good example of that. But then maybe, is it something that helps like a little, like a subgenre of quote unquote backpack rap? Or I remember when like Lyricist Lounge started getting big too around that same type of time, or getting more exposure. It fits in somewhere where it had maybe not a global impact, but it definitely impacts its scene, maybe, you know?
Oh, sure, for sure. And I'm not, any of those albums I just previously named, I'm not downing on at all, but I'm just saying, you know, even like, so our other brother over there, like maybe like, I would say if you look at, you know, 90s albums, they talk about things like Pavement, Slanted, and Enchanted. These are like great albums, but, you know, was that really what you were banging? Did it add to your good time? So, like, how do we judge it?
Yeah, no, definitely see that. Like, yeah, it could be great, but that doesn't mean it's going to be in your top 10. Exactly.
Or the art against the good time dichotomy I always have, you know, an issue with when we're naming a top 10, you know, because I like to, you know, whether it makes you feel the best or it's important is, you know, two very different things. So how you're subjective is, you know, additionally makes a task like this difficult. Yep,
and again, it's how you see it, and what's going on in your life that you can relate to it. You know, something like Ghostface Killer, All That I Got Is You.
Woohoo!
Like, yeah, man, that's gonna like you can play.
I still know all the words to that one.
That's one of my favorite songs ever. You know, and I just remember because why it was. You know, like me and my mom lived by ourselves. Like she was a single mom and everything. We had a fucking small kind of shitty apartment, but had an apartment at least, you know. And it was just like a rough time for us, you know. So that song like really stood out to me. But to somebody else, that might be like that has no meaning to them whatsoever. You know, they don't connect the same way.
It's trite, you know, having looked back on it, like, oh, those conditions don't really exist, etc. Where, you know, if you hear the line "dwelling in the past," flashbacks when I was young, you know, that just may take you to another place if that's one of your songs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it could take you to a better place than what that song describes too. Hearing a line like that,
I got listened to on the car on the way back to work. Now that you brought that up.
Yeah, no, I remember like that was one of my favorite albums. That shit was awesome, and it's weird, especially for one of like the way that he was lyrical. It's like a lot of people make the argument that he makes no sense whatsoever in like any of his songs, you know. So it's just weird.
He's very colloquial in that. I mean, take that album out in Staten Island and take it out to California, you're gonna get two different meanings. You know, these seem to be. You know, and I hear this a lot living in Nashville, that some of our guys that, you know, we really thought were major players in New York are really, you know, sort of hometown guys.
Which, like, for example, like, so, are you saying like people that we thought were the shit, and then like they might not have even heard of like where you are now?
Yes, correct.
All right. All right.
Well, yeah, that's definitely. I mean, there's completely different worlds, and I don't know how long you've been in Nashville, but I don't know that it's always been like a giant, like the way that you explain it, it's like you can find every type of music there. I don't know that that's always been the case, and so I think people from the area probably like wouldn't even be affected by certain periods of time of like music because that they weren't even exposed to that.
Yeah, just like the Locks, most specifically, I think about. So I listen to Jadakiss like it's my job. And people haven't even heard of them sometimes down here.
Yeah, that's always weird, too. I remember being out in Ohio for a few years, and definitely kind of getting that same thing, too, where it's like stuff that's, like, again, classic to me and shit, they had never even heard of. Or they thought maybe, like, something like The Blueprint was Jay-Z's first album, or something like that. And you're just like, and it's just the perspective. Oh, you're right. Did you just fall over? What the hell was that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I bumped the laptop with my knee. We'll be all right, though.
I think with Long Island, though, or, New York in general, like, it's, like, almost a different world apart from, like, every other world, and, like, things that you think of as the norm, like, here, you'll go anywhere else, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what's wrong with everyone? And it's really like, what's wrong with us? But, like, we look at it like, we're like, what the fuck is up with everybody? Like, what did they miss? Like...
I remember one time driving down to Tennessee, I drove my mom's car down, I drove her down here as well, and we're just in the middle of Virginia, and she's like, nothing on either side, and she's like, you got to understand, more of the world is like this than is like the way we live in New York City.
Yeah, it's like weird. It's strange to me, like when I go anywhere else and like it's not exactly like Long Island, because that's where I've been like my whole life.
And I think it's even worse in Long Island because it's very bubble.
Yeah,
like,
it's very, very specific.
Long Island right now.
Sorry?
Where in Long Island do you...
Nassau County? Do you want my address? I don't want to put it out there like that.
Sure, for sure. We'll talk about that later. But,
you can send me some fan mail. But yeah, like I grew up, obviously upstate. I was born in Long Island, but did a lot of my growing up more upstate, which is funny. It's a funny term because it's only like about 2 hours max upstate. And there's about another 12 hours of New York that you could go to, which is really upstate. But again, I guess it's just being in that bubble. To Long Islanders and New York and people in the city, upstate is an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
And it's really the same bottom eighth of the state.
Yeah, we watched, even Newberg got the New York City news. So, like, what's a major city by you? New York?
Yeah, exactly. So but I always remember thinking that, even just growing up where I did upstate, and that the Long Islanders especially are like fucking bubble people. Like they're so shocked about anywhere and everything that's not exactly like Long Island, when, like you said, most of the country is this way, and then Long Island is just, it's opposite way.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how it is when I like work with, I have currently students in the Bronx, and like, yeah, they have a completely different world to me. Like, they live in, like, this small urban world that, like, they don't really leave. And, like, whenever I say, like, specific things, like, you can see, like, the gears in their head turning because, like, I come from a completely different, like, suburban world where, like, I have access to certain things that maybe they do have access to, but they don't think about it as having access to. So, like, I'll say, like, anything, and they'll just be looking at me like, what? And I'll be like, oh, I'm from Long Island. Like, every once in a while, I feel like I have to remind them.
Not in Long Island, thank you.
Yeah, that's a weird one, too. I never really got, like, I know when I'm writing mail, like, I put my town's name, like, on the address and everything, but it's weird because, like, Long Island doesn't show up on anything like that. You never write Long Island anywhere.
Some people don't even know it exists. I actually told someone online I was from Long Island, and they thought I was from, like, Hawaii. Because, like, I guess they didn't think that there's islands off the coast of, like, both sides of America, and that people live on them. And so, it's probably the same thing that if someone told me they were from one of the islands in, like, Key West, I'd be like, oh, so you're from Cuba? Like, I just wouldn't get it,
Yeah, a lot of people fail to realize that Manhattan is an island.
Yeah, and that there's tiny islands off of the coast of the entirety of America, and that people live on them. You know.
I've always said that
Long Island's a tiny island.
Yeah, Long Island is pretty tiny.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. They've definitely
It's only like the size of Delaware. I'm just.
It's been said that if the sea level really rises and becomes a problem, Manhattan and Long Island are like almost the first to go.
Well, what's also sucks about Long Island is that the evacuation plan is don't do anything, because we have so many cars as compared to the amount of road that we have, and like the concentration of people that like there would just be instant gridlock if people tried to evacuate. So we're pretty much just fucked if anything happens.
I mean, there's instant gridlock when people go to work.
Yeah.
And that's not all the people. So.
It really blows my mind. Like, I never really comprehend what's really going on when you're sitting in traffic and you're, like, not moving at all. Like, I don't really get, like, and, you know, you get up there and it's just, like, traffic. Like, there wasn't something specific. Like, that doesn't ever make sense in my head. Like, why are people just stopped and there's a wall of stopped people? Like, it's so weird to me.
That annoys me to no degree. Especially, one of the worst examples I remember of it is... I'm on whatever highway I was on, I don't fucking remember, but it was mad traffic, it was going real slow, and by the time you get up to what was causing it, it had nothing to do with our lane whatsoever. Like, I was on a 3-lane highway, and then next to us going south or the opposite direction is another 3-lane highway, and not even on the median side where it would be right next to us, it was all the way off on the shoulder side, and like a car just crashed there. So it wasn't even really affecting their lane of the people that were going that way.
It's just that so many people were changing lanes because people are trying to get out of that one lane, and then the people in that middle lane are like, oh, I want people coming into my lane, so they get over into your lane. And I
think it was more people just watching it.
Oh yeah, that too.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
people just
and
being
you're just
assholes.
and then as soon as you pass that part there, you're back to going fucking 60 and 70.
And you're an hour late for work.
Exactly. And you're like, this is what I was fucking waiting here an hour for? Are you serious? It had nothing to do with us whatsoever. It did not affect our lanes. It didn't even really affect the lanes closest to us on the other side. You're like, I just can't believe that shit, yo. And
that's why I usually end up honking when I'm passing the accident, because people are just sitting there fucking staring at the accident. So I honk, so they go, what the fuck? And like they actually hopefully look at the road.
Oh yeah, I should be driving.
Yeah, like it's crazy. I know you don't honk at all. I abuse my horn. That's because I'm always watching people that like you could tell from the back of their head, like from the brim of their hat pointing down, that they're texting. And like the light turns green. I'm not gonna wait more than like a second for that light to be green with you texting.
I will honk to that. I did say I will honk to that. If you're just on your phone, I know you're not gonna pay attention anytime soon. I give you to a solid 3 seconds. Might be a fast 3 seconds, but I'll give you an appropriate 1, 2, honk.
Oh, see, I assume that anytime that like I just see brake lights in front of me with a green light above it, that they are just texting or someone is texting, so I always honk. And I have a short car, so I used to have the Jeep and I could see over people and see that they were texting, but now I have the short car, so sometimes I don't even know if there's 2 cars in front of me. It just looks like there's one. And so I'll just honk just knowing like there's probably someone up there fucking.
I was gonna say, are you the guy who honks like around to the next car? Because I hate that a lot too.
But you know what? Some people just sit there and they don't fucking do anything. Like they're sitting there, the person in front of them has been sitting at a green light for 10 seconds and they're not doing shit. They're just like looking at them like they'll go. So I'll honk at everybody and hopefully something will fucking
smile
stick.
some shit up, get any reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, listen, I'm not honking at you to move. I'm honking at you to honk the person in front of you to move his fucking ass.
Yeah, like hopefully the person comprehends that like they should know I'm not honking at them. I'm honking at the person in front of them being an asshole.
So I'm not mad at you, but please pay it forward.
Yeah.
Honk it forward. And let's go.
I'm not mad at you, but I am kind of mad at you for not fucking honking earlier.
And on the flip side to that, I hate the people that honk you as soon as it turns green.
Yeah,
like,
that's fucked.
It's like, where the fuck are you going? Or people who go up and around you to go off the same fucking exit?
Yeah. Oh, I saw an awesome video of that. Somebody doing that and smashed into the back of an 18-wheeler and then got hit by another 18-wheeler in the other lane. Because they tried to go.
I didn't ask for all that.
Ooh, yeah, but that's, you know what? That's what happens when you try some stupid shit. You know, it's like it's weird because nobody.
Where are you going?
It's like I don't know if it's a reflex thing where it's like, oh shit, that's the exit I was supposed to get off of, and it kind of takes over the rational part of your brain where it's like, well, I could go to the next exit and not die.
There's some people, though, where I'll see them and, like, I see them every day. Like, there's this one exit where you have to get off of, I'm not even sure what road I'm on in the Bronx, and then you have to get off there, and you have to, basically, in the span of, like, one exit, you have to go over 4 lanes to get onto the Throgs Neck Bridge. And, yeah, there's this one person I always see every single day, because, like, there's this just road of people just waiting to, like, do this, like, little shuffle every day. And there's someone I see every day who just goes right past it and cuts in front and, like, you know, instead of being the last car in line, they're, you know, 8th to last car in line. And seriously, one day I just want to get out and just fucking, like, pop their tires or something. Like, drives me crazy.
Sometimes there's the people that are, like, try to go around everybody on the shoulder.
Yeah, oh my god.
I will try to get in their way.
Yeah, I always, like, close in so they can't pull in.
Yeah.
And
I just want to follow them and be like, oh, I thought there was something.
I'm like, yeah, bitch. Or the people, like, even when it is civilized and everyone's, like, taking their turn, like, say 2 lanes are going to 1 or whatever it is, and, like, all right, this person goes, the next person goes, the one on the left goes, the one on the right goes, but then you always have that one asshole that tries to sneak in with the other person, and you're like, what are you gaining by this?
Yeah.
You could see that we're, like, there's a pattern here and it's working out fine.
Yeah, we've
now
been
you're just
doing
trying
a
to be a
proper
dick.
zipper, and now you just fucked it all up.
Do you get this as much in Nashville? Is it a little calmer?
Nope. Yeah, but you're living in the land of NASCAR, my friend, so no one signals.
Good
The only
point.
thing that's funny down here is that people don't realize when it's icy on the road, there's a very difficult math problem you do. It's slow down. And because people love to have trucks and they have 4-wheel drive here. And
Yeah, but it's not the same
at
as
70. And I was in a little Honda Civic when I was in grad school. I used to see the same trucks sideways over in the median. You can go 75 if you have 4-wheel drive, believe it or not.
Actually, not. You know what? It makes no difference on ice.
Yeah, you can.
That's what I'm saying. Is they'll go 75 miles an hour, and I'll see the 4-wheel drive trucks sideways in a ditch.
Yeah, you can pick up the traction. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to keep it when you're stopping and your mass is still moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's like, all 4 of your wheels are working, but guess what? They're all on ice, so it doesn't. It makes no difference whatsoever.
All 4 wheels of my rear-wheel drive Civic are going 37 miles an hour, and we're going 1 mile faster. But yeah, these people can't drive on the ice, and they don't know what a turn signal is.
Is it yeah, that annoys me a lot actually, because it's real. I mean, it's right there by your hand. Just fucking signal it. I hate when people don't do that shit, especially if they're kind of cutting you off and not signaling. That is like, I guess maybe if you already made the commitment to be a dick and cut me off, like, what does it matter if you signaled
Just
or not?
Just make a decision, but don't half-step either one.
Ain't no half-stepping.
Yeah, I can't stand when people don't signal. That's gotta be like my least favorite thing. When other than driving past people and visibly seeing that they're texting and looking down at their phone while like driving. But
I was up in New York this summer. We have I don't know. I was up in Albany, and I saw that if you get 3 text citations up in Albany County, they take your license now.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
It's definitely. I know you get a bunch of points for it, so. It makes sense.
That's just fucking horrifying. Seeing people not even looking at the road, like driving, like that's fucking scary.
I would recommend New York makes the same rule that Tennessee makes. You can talk on your cell phone, but you can't text.
Yeah.
I agree.
At least talk on the phone and look at the road.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the confirmation bias, like I mentioned with like I think you were saying, like, you can't stand women drivers. And I was saying that that's just confirmation bias. I don't know if it's the same thing, but I see so many people driving, talking on their cell phone that I'm like, stop driving like a fucking asshole. And then I get next to them and I'm like, oh, they're on their cell phone. But the thing that I know is encumbering if you're talking on your cell phone is if you're using the hand that you use to fucking signal. Then you've already fucked yourself up. And that's what I'll see. I'm looking at people. I'm like, how are you supposed to be doing anything properly if you're using your fucking signaling hand for, like, talking on the phone?
What I've been doing lately is I actually have one of those little, like, suction cup things that go to the windshield. And even before that, though, I still use my phone the same way in the car. I just put it on speakerphone and put it on the dash.
Yeah.
I have a shoulder, so I just pin my shoulder up against my ear and use both hands. Crazy.
Well, yeah, no, I'm still using both hands. To me, that's just uncomfortable. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I can't do it with cell phones. Cell phones
No
are
one
too
wants
small
Traction to
now.
be uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're so small and everything.
Yeah, I can't do that with like, I used to be able to do that with, like, house phones and stuff, but cell phones are so small.
But even the house phone, like, back in the day, like, they had you could get, like, the little shoulder thing for it, so it was, like, contoured to the shoulder, and it was almost like a high heel for your phone, so it was like 3 inches up.
I want that exact device you're talking about right now.
Yeah. Little do we know that Josh used to be a 90s secretary, so he needed something like that.
I did know that, actually.
Yeah, I know all about this. Yeah, no, I think sometimes they go too far with, like, because obviously if you're talking on the phone, it's no different than just talking to the passenger in the car. People turn and look at their passenger when they talk to them. You know, like, I feel like it's probably safer to have one hand actually holding the phone up to your ear and driving. I mean, because then you get to the point where are you just going to outlaw everything in your hand? Like, can you drink? Can you drink out of a cup while you drive? Should that be allowed?
I can't even drive with my dick in my hand anymore. What's the world coming to? Thanks, Obama.
I got this suction cup thing to hang this on my dashboard for no reason.
I think, and some of, if you want to go like a bigger scale with it, it's like you almost need to be distracted in your car. And I don't mean where you're not looking at the road, but because you could say the same thing like, well, you shouldn't be able to listen to the radio in your car or change a CD or anything like that because it's taking your attention away. But more so nowadays, people's car is like their fucking sanctuary. It's like the only time of the day where they can kind of do what they want to do, whether it is listening to music, a fucking podcast, or fucking just eating what they want and stuff, because we're in such a get there now, go fast, everything's going on. We're at work for so long, you're not at home long, you got so much to do that the only time that you have to yourself is in your car almost.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, what sounds more dangerous to you? Me talking on a cell phone or me playing air guitar to death metal while, like, attempting to sing while eating Chex while driving, you know, like...
Now you did
it. You know, like, I think probably talking on my cell phone sounds a little safer, but which one do I do way more is the air guitar while driving and eating.
What it's going to come down to is driving will be just outlawed, and everyone's gonna have to have a Google car.
Well, that is one thing that they're saying, that it's gonna become like a moral choice in the future when we have like self-driving cars, or as like they're trying to call them now, like autos or whatever. That like you would that basically like it becomes a liability thing. Like, should we let people be able to drive? How dangerous is that as compared to like a car that drives itself? You know,
I'm glad that. As much as I said, I'm going to be mad that I won't be alive in like 1,000 years to see everything that's going on. If we're fucking have jetpacks that are in our shoes or something like that, and all the cool technological things. I'm also happy that I probably won't be alive for that debate, though.
Well, you know what? I mean,
don't read that either.
You're currently alive for that debate, though, because like self-driving cars are coming around.
They're there.
We're starting to talk about it now.
But I think that when it gets to the point where there's enough that it could actually supply everybody, and it's a real discussion where you're not allowed to, I think that's gonna. I'm not going to make it to that.
But I think even, like, like, that debate's always been around, too. Like, Isaac Asimov put that debate out with, like, iRobot. And the whole idea of, like, what is, like, if you have to make a decision between two different things, like, what is the prevailing choice, what gives the most benefit, things like that, you know? And so, like, that's really what it comes down to sometimes. And so I think... Though that is like an important debate, in that I would very gladly give up my right to drive a car in order to have computers drive a car for me and just have that time back. I mean, as of right now, Mondays and Wednesdays I spend 2 hours, maybe even more, in traffic just going to the Bronx to teach class.
Well, I do think because my girlfriend has the same problem. She's always it takes her probably half the day just in her car driving to and from work.
Yeah.
So I can see if there's a definite benefit where, okay, this hour commute now is only going to take you 10 minutes because it's automated and we're avoiding all the things that cause traffic. That's cool, but can you also... like, can you balance it where it's like, all right, but now it's the weekend and I want to fucking drive because.
Well, I mean, also
somewhere now.
At the same point, though, I mean, I don't think it's the matter of, like, you know, it'll take me 10 minutes to get to the Bronx. It's more that I have that freedom to do these things while my car is driving. So I could be drawing in that time, or every day I could think to myself, okay, during my commute on the way in, I'll watch the first half of a movie. On the way out, I'll watch the second half.
You mean you don't draw during your commute now?
What?
You know what? It's actually... Any artist listening to this will tell you it's actually kind of hard not to want to draw sometimes while you're driving. Like, you'll get an idea, you'll be like, I need to capture this.
Yeah.
And like you want to just kind of sketch it out or whatever. Or sometimes I want to, like, I've been, you know, I was talking about my graphic novel with you earlier, and like I've been trying to do a lot of writing lately, and I'll get these ideas and I want to write them down so I don't lose them. But what I end up doing is, and like I've said, it doesn't make you crazy, I end up just talking to myself and running through this whole thing in a way that hopefully I'll remember since I said it to myself.
Well, funny that you mentioned that, because I was going to say that, yeah, it puts you at a disadvantage, because if you're a songwriter, or even if you just, whatever, you're CEO and you have an idea, you can always voice note something. And I was going to say, like, obviously you can't voice note an illustration, but if you have an idea for it, you could do something like that, where you are kind of voice noting the idea at least, and maybe the steps that you're going to do to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And at least it's there.
Yeah. But I do think, you know, that by the time that it becomes a thing where, you know, like you're saying you're worried, like you won't be able to go for your, you know, Sunday drive or whatever, you know, on the weekend. You know, I think by the time where, you know, automatic driving cars are so prevalent, I think by then, you know, Oculus Rift and virtual reality will be so great that you could just go for a drive, but, you know, hang out in your living room or whatever.
Well,
but also at the same time, I would love to just go for a drive and not have to actually care about where I'm driving. Like, you know, sometimes the best part about going for a drive is, you know, house watching or people watching or looking at, you know, the architecture in your neighborhood that you never noticed. And now you can do that while driving around, you know?
I do agree that after it's like been here and it's been the way for 100 years, yeah, it's not going to be a problem for anyone. It's going to be the biggest problem for the people that, you know, like, oh, I remember being able to drive my own car.
Yeah.
And you got a real feeling, a connection with the car and the road.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, that's something really big, and you can speak on it from, you know, being in the home of NASCAR and stuff. Like, those people will go fucking nuts. They got to sit in a goddamn car that's driving itself. Like, again, after it's been the norm for 100 years, it's not going to be a problem, but it's that crossover period where you're going to get a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
Where the only place...
You guys are living in New York world, and you're realizing how unfeasible just cars that drive places are in the, like, crazy rural areas. It's not going to...
No, at some point,
you
know what?
They did test those Google cars throughout the entire, like, landscape of America, so it wasn't really just, you know, isolated to, like, LA or wherever. It did the entirety of California, which is...
feasibility on the top.
Well, right now, it might not be feasible. I totally agree. But I also feel that technology always catches up. You know? So at some point, whether it's 100 years from now, 200 years from now, I mean, you could say the same thing about fucking... At some point, someone was like, yeah, we're never going to make it to the moon. What are you, fucking crazy? But at some point, the technology catches up, and it will probably be the norm where cars are driving by themselves.
I mean, even a more direct comparison, people thought cars weren't going to catch on at all. They thought that the horseless carriage was, like, insane, and that, like, you know, we will never have the infrastructure to uphold that, but we really need to just basically end up making that commitment to making that, you know, infrastructure hold up. You know, it's kind of weird how it works. But.
It's funny when you were talking about the crazy crossover of like 5 lanes to get to the Throgs next from where you are in the Bronx. There are two that stick out in my mind where I think it's from the northern state onto the Cross Island. Like, I don't know where this other fucking road is coming from to get onto the northern state, but it's a literal X, and it's like within maybe 400, 500 feet, where you're coming off the northern state and have to cross over to get to the Cross Island, and then you're coming on from whatever road, maybe it might even be from the LAE, I don't even know, but you're coming off of that to get onto the northern state, and it makes it X, and it's like, who the fuck would design something like that?
Fucking Robert Moses, who didn't want who wanted to keep the riffraff off of Long Island, designed it and thought it was a good idea.
Also failed at that.
Yeah, and now we're fucked because we have way more people than we do road.
And also, Well, I don't know about it at the time, because I feel like that's even a pretty newer, like, crossover that they made, but most of the exits, like the original ones on the Northern State, it's literally 200 feet.
Yeah,
that you have to merge
insane.
on. And it's because when it was made, the car's top speed was 30 miles an hour.
Well,
so it was like, no problem.
Also, it wasn't so compact as to have to worry about those people that were coming up.
Exactly.
You know?
There wasn't as many cars either, or people. So that combination of like slow cars that were infrequently using the Northern State, and now you have a million people a day trying to get on the same fucking exit in cars that are going 80 miles an hour down the fucking thing. It's really it's a game for your life on some of these exits trying to get on and off.
If you like strange vintage stuff, there's this old video from when like the motorway was becoming big, and it's an instructional video made by Disney starring Goofy about how to like use a highway and how to like merge onto it properly and how not to be an asshole on the highway basically. And it's really great to see that like there was a period of time where like this was a fortuitous thing to make. Like they had to spend money to make that. They had to pay people to animate that, voice act it, all these things, photograph it, and yeah, like it was totally fortuitous to do that because like, you know, they were driving in Burbank and being so mad about the way people were driving, and it was helpful to them, you know, like it's so crazy to think of. But
I always hear how bad like LA traffic is, especially and from people that have like been in New York traffic, and I know how bad New York traffic can be. I never want to drive in LA during those times. Like it kind of gives me a little, like how we were talking about a few episodes back, like if like a screw is shown getting put into under someone's fingernail, how it makes you want to like squirm and look away. That's what talking about LA traffic does to me. Like I don't even want to think about ever being stuck in that, yo.
Yeah, I hear it's really bad.
And it's like 6-lane freeways and stuff that are just don't move. Can you imagine that? Like we think we have it bad, and again, perspective and everything we do to us, but fuck driving over there, man. And it's not like at least with us, we have a lot of, I guess they do there to an extent, but probably not as much as far as public transportation goes to get you to places. I mean, I guess a bus is still going to be stuck in traffic, but a subway really isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is there, if it's like more spread out, where it's like not. It's just harder to use public transportation to get there.
I'm not really sure. Because
I'm surprised that Speed wasn't a way shorter movie. After hearing about LA traffic, like really, they kept this bus at over 55 for.
Well, that's all I visualize when I think of LA traffic. Is I think of Speed and I think of that scene in Clueless where she accidentally gets on the freeway, and that's just basically my entire vision of LA traffic and how it would be.
That Clueless reference now reminds me of what I wanted to say before when we were talking about music, and you're like, yeah, they went out looking for more people that sounded like Nirvana, and then with the boy bands, they made the boy bands. Are we going to hear more white female rappers then?
But it's very possible. Very, very possible. I mean, yeah. I mean, especially because people were saying, I don't know if it was Iggy Azalea. I think it might have been someone else. But it was like a matter of Rihanna like hasn't gotten to like a certain spot on the charts, but meanwhile people performing songs, white women performing songs written by Rihanna, like, or that Rihanna passed up, are getting higher in the charts. And like they're saying that like, so that's probably just a matter of statistics. Yeah, well, we're probably going to see more white women.
And I always, I love the white women.
more white women rapping.
Can we dance with Joe Dates?
But I think they've always done that, because obviously you have where like from back in the day with like Elvis songs and everything, just ripping off. Yeah, literally, like ripping off songs from black artists, you know, and had it in rock and roll too and stuff. So it's just like, unfortunately, another version of that, you know. Yeah, and not to say, but like it's weird using her as an example, because she obviously has a shit ton of chart-topping songs. You know, so she's kind of a weird example, I guess.
I'll probably get flack for this, but I like Iggy Azalea. I don't have a problem with any of the music I've heard of hers. Her music videos tend to be fun. She did that one that was like an ode to Kill Bill. You know, like, I don't know. She seems like, as far as I know, she's not saying like that she's going out there and she's like capping people. Like, she's not trying to pretend to be something she's not. Like, she actually is kind of like, you know, trailer, like expat of a trailer that's like trying to, you know, become her own. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say she's like like I hate her or she's whack or something like that either. I'm kind of indifferent when it comes to her music.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if like if DJing has put me in there where sometimes I just have to be, where it's like, well, might not be my favorite thing, but or I see the people how they react to it though, so I play it out, so like it grows on me a little more. I feel like that definitely happens a lot, where songs I wouldn't normally really listen to definitely start to grow on me from hearing them a lot, and it definitely, like what I was saying before about 80s songs, like there's certain 80s songs I never really listened to, but now that I play them out a lot more, I'm like, yeah, these are pretty dope. Like I would definitely put my Pandora station on this and just like listen to it for
now. You can't help but rock out to Beethoven, I'm sorry, Beethoven. I meant to say Meatloaf, which for some reason in my head they're the same thing. I guess Beethoven and Meatloaf.
Well, don't they both have like that same like kind of forehead, like big forehead?
Yeah,
thing,
I don't know. Maybe I've seen a lot of I see a lot of lithographs drawn of Meatloaf, and that's one song that I always like. There's no real connection to like my life, but I can't help but rock out to Paradise by the Dashboard Light by Meatloaf.
Yo, certain people go crazy.
Yeah, no, and as a DJ, you must know, that's the song that 40-year-old ladies, well, I guess now they'd be like 50, 60-year-old ladies like rip off their top to, because like it's just it's so overwhelming to them.
Hang out. Josh, remember they used to play that at our high school dance? That was the
you know what? The only thing I remember about some of the high school dances, like I remember the dude like who did a lot of them. I remember his face. I don't remember his name. I think it was Eddie something or whatever, or Eric's maybe.
It was Eddie Money.
Yeah, Eric. That sounds right.
It was something like that. But I don't totally remember a lot of. I'm weird with details when it comes to that type of stuff. Like a lot of, and that brings me on a whole nother thing. It's like about recollection and memory. Like if you don't remember certain things, especially when it's like childhood stuff or like anywhere from like 10 to 15 even. If you don't remember any like day-to-day stuff, it's like, why did you even go through that shit? It's like, why did you even live it? Like it's just weird because I don't know if it's about. Is it because of maybe certain connections that you didn't have with people, or because obviously there are stuff I do remember, but there's a lot that I don't.
Yeah, well, it's weird. Sometimes I'll be scrolling through Facebook and I'll see people that like I'm Facebook friends with, and I'll be like, "Oh, you used to like." There's a period of time where you actually like mattered in my life, and like now like I haven't even thought about you in like several years.
And you almost can't even remember why they mattered at that time.
Yeah, and
that's the thing.
It was almost like it was like a fever dream that you had where you hung out with these people for a period of time, and you're like, wait, did that really happen?
It's a little scary sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, wow, I used to chill with this person like all the time, and I can barely tell you one sentence that happened between us.
Yeah.
It's odd,
friendships that we have nowadays.
What up?
I said very important friendships that we have nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, yeah. And I wonder if it's if I'm gonna feel the same way in 10 years, like about you. Like I pointed to Eric for everyone who didn't see that. Like we chill all the time and have these conversations, and if we stop like in the next year, 10 years from now, am I gonna remember any of them? Am I gonna be like, oh, why did I like that kid? Like why?
Yeah. Yeah, actually that happens sometimes, like, because, working in a restaurant and stuff like that, like, you encounter so many different people and there's such high turnover. Like, all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, yeah, that person existed. Like, and, like, that person, like, every day that I came in, I used to think, like, oh, that person's the shit. Like, good thing I'm working with them. And then suddenly, like, they no longer existed in your life and you, like, completely forgot that it even was a thing.
It, you know what? It brings you into that theory of, I don't know the exact name of the theory, but it's like that reality and stuff doesn't exist until you interact with it, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is a way to think of it, is that,
I'm not saying I agree with that at all. I'm just saying it's a theory that's out there.
Yeah.
With the way that your consciousness works and stuff like that, that if you're not... It's almost like, if a tree falls in the wood, doesn't make any sound. Well, like, if you don't interact with something or see it or anything like that, does it even fucking exist? Even though somebody else could tell you about it.
Well, it was interesting. I saw like a different scientists' perspective on like that question, and like just like the way that different scientists will put it, and like vibrations were definitely formed, and stuff like that, and like Like there'll only be certain scientists that are saying like that your perception of it makes it, you know? Whereas like, you know, you could say that technically if no one's there, it's not technically a sound because no one was there to hear it and perceive it as a sound, but it still was like a vibration that happened and stuff like that. And I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and also though, but you don't take into account, like, I bet you a rabbit heard it.
Yeah.
Like, there's something in the fucking woods that heard it.
Completely fucking empty woods.
Yeah.
Just filled with trees for whatever reason with nothing living inside.
Or even something without hearing, like, you know, like an earthworm felt it then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the ground. So, yeah, I never really bought that it doesn't make a sound.
Speaking of worms, I found out a fact recently that kind of blew my mind, and I like kind of refuse to believe it's true. Do you know that 90% of the animal kingdom is flatworms? Or roundworms.
I don't know. Yeah, it seems like a weird stat. I feel like I would believe it more if you said ants.
No, roundworms.
Like, cause I've without a doubt a lot of times in my life seen hundreds of ants at once. I've never seen a whole bunch of worms at once.
I guess it's just they kind of coat things. I mean, they can be they can be smaller than a millimeter. Like they're really tiny, and like they
so is it like wait what?
Yeah, I don't know how they constitute even as animals. I feel like that should be something else.
In my head, I'm thinking like an earthworm type of thing.
Yeah, no, it's
but is it more like even like a bacteria or something?
It's like it's bigger than a bacteria, but like I guess it would be like what ants would eat. You know, like I don't know.
Well, then I can kind of see that. It makes a little sense then if it's something that, for all intents and purposes, isn't even there.
Yeah,
to you.
But I was reading it, and definitely research this on your own because it sounds so incredible. Is that like if you were to get rid of all the matter on the Earth, with the exception of roundworms, that they would cover the entire surface of the Earth, and it would basically look like there was like a ghost of the Earth there, but it would all just be little tiny roundworms. Like that's how many there are. They're in every single climate, everything. Like
I mean,
fucking crazy.
It doesn't seem like out too far outside the realm of possibility now that I know we're not talking about earthworms. You know? So I guess that could be. But now I wonder if that is one of the animals, like we've said before, how our population as humans like gets bigger and bigger, is like doubled in the last however many years, and the population of animals has decreased. Does that count as an animal in that sense too? Then
I think they live.
It's like got cut in half by 50% actually.
Yeah, I think they live on like the surface of our skin and stuff and thrive off of us existing.
Shit.
So I don't think they've actually gone down in numbers at all.
Yeah, because we're not affected. We are their habitat.
Yeah,
so
basically.
We're not. So if anything, there's way more. They're helping out the animal numbers.
Yeah, we just put anything anywhere. They're like, oh, we'll eat that. We'll eat your old bacteria off your foot. Like, you know, like
yummy toe jam sundaes.
Oh, speaking of which, no, I have no possible segue off of eating toe jam sundaes.
You know what? I do. There was a game, Earthworm Jim, that had toe jam in it. It was a little dude.
No, you're thinking of two different games.
I am?
Toe Jam and Earl.
Separate game? Toe Jam and Earl, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was Earthworm Jim.
All right.
Yeah.
So it still ties together. It's like 6 degrees of separation.
I remember Toe Jam and Earl, and I don't remember it being a good game. I remember it just being so, like, grotesque that it caught my attention as a kid. Like, I would go to Blockbuster, or, like, I used to have a tape rental place across the street from my house, because tape rental used to be so big that they didn't even just need the chains. They could, like, you could open up your own ma and pop rental store.
Hey, we had one. I remember they had a weird system too. It was like keychains. Like they had put a keychain like on like where the video was, I think.
Oh, like it was chain locked to like the shelf, or
just like you would bring up like a little keychain thing that had like a number in it. So it was almost like at a library, like that Dewey Decimal System of how to find it in the back. So like you would bring that number up, bring it to them, and then they'd find it in the back and give you the actual video and stuff. It was a odd little system.
I feel like there's something missing out from that now, and I feel like that like. Now you have Netflix and stuff like that, and it suggests movies based off movies you like or whatever, and, like, I think something's missing from that. Like, I feel like when we get into, like, Oculus virtual reality future, that they'll recreate that video store experience, because, like, walking around there was something very zen about choosing a movie while walking around, and, like, you remember visually where that movie was, and, like, stuff like that.
But are they after the generation that actually, the last generation that used video stores, like, aren't involved in that anymore.
That's true. But I don't know. Like I felt like there was something that would help you.
It might not have a value to people
Yeah.
that never experienced that.
Yeah.
You know? It's weird. It's all, and yeah, it gets you into like places where interaction happens seem to be like dying numbers. And that was one of those places where if you saw somebody pick up a video, you'd be like, oh man, don't even waste your time, you know? Or like, oh yeah, I just saw that last week, it was really good. Or you might just pick something up and turn to them like, hey, did you see, like, and obviously after the beginning of any type of interaction conversation, it can go anywhere from that, you know? You could meet your fucking future wife that way, you know, or something like that.
I met my current girlfriend in the comments of a YouTube video, so...
I hope that's that dry humor that...
Yeah, that was.
But that's what it is. Like, that's like the only form, or one of the biggest forms of interaction now, is like YouTube comments, or, you know, Facebook statuses and stuff like that. Everybody's always in their phone, and it's funny how, I was talking about this with someone today, that there's this video that's going around, this like catcalling video, with this girl that someone was in front of her with a camera, basically, like had a camera attached to their backpack or something like that, and she walked around the city, New York City, for 10 hours, and it's just her getting basically approached by guys throughout the whole fucking 10 hours, you know? And nothing too crazy happens. Like, there are people that are like, oh, damn, mommy, and, you know, or like, oh, God, look at you, and stuff like that. And then some people are just like, hey, how you doing? And there's this one dude that literally follows her for 5 minutes, which is definitely a little creepy.
I think, though, when anyone says anything to you and you're in a situation like that where you're, like, where you could be perceived as vulnerable, you know? Like, you just never know what's going to happen in that situation. And that's probably the scarier part, being that person, you know, and not knowing where this is going to go after they say the initial thing.
Without a doubt, but in the defense of the video, not defense of the video, but in the defense of that point, is like, she is in the city during the day with, like, literally hundreds of people around. So it's not like being in the back alley late at night and you're the only one there and someone's following you for 5 minutes.
At the same time, though, if you're in the city in the middle of the day, how easy would it be to trail someone, you know, like a couple blocks behind them and kind of follow them to their home?
Yeah,
you know?
Without a doubt. But, I mean, he was very poor at it because he was, like, literally next to her.
Yeah.
It was really,
like, you
yeah,
know,
it was odd. But, yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying it's not, like, there isn't some concern there, you know? But, again, just being like, I'm talking about it in terms of interaction with people. Like, everybody has their face in their phone all the time, and there's a movement against, like, that. And it's like, hey, recognize the world around you. And then there's this, where it's like, don't fucking talk to people you don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but, I mean, I feel like they're probably talking to her because they think she's hot, not because, like, hey, you look like you have interesting things to say, or you care about what's going on around you.
All right, but that's the same thing.
Also, I think during any period of time in a crowded city, if you were just to go up to random people and talk to them, it's kind of weird. You know, if you're waiting online and you both happen to look at the same, like, magazine cover and talk about that, I think that's one thing, you know? But, like, if you're just crossing someone going the opposite way and you go, hey, how you doing? Like, it seems like you're just fucking being creepy.
Unless, you know? All right, unless you're Ryan Gosling in a fucking romantic comedy. You know what I'm saying? Then it's totally cool. You know?
Or you live in the South and you make eye contact with somebody. Everybody talks to everybody down there.
And that's a real good point too. Like, the city has a different like stigma to that about just making eye contact and talking, even really just being fucking normally polite to people. You know, people avoid. You could hold the door open for fucking 5 people and not one of them will look at you in the city. You know, so what I was trying to say with it is just like there's a way to approach it too. Obviously, if you're like, damn, bitch, look at that ass. Like, yeah, that's not something you should be yelling out to somebody, you know? But it just, you got to know the, how to be respectful about it. And also when to back off when it's not wanted.
Yeah, and I think when you're just walking past someone the opposite direction, it's not wanted, you know? Like unless it's about, like, something serious. Like, you know, if I were walking down the street wearing, like, a certain band t-shirt and someone's like, yeah, hell yeah, that band, or hell yeah, Star Wars, like, I feel like that's different.
Serious right there.
Yeah, but I feel like that's different than just seeing a person that has, like, nothing descriptive about them other than the fact that they're attractive and just going, like, hey, like, you know? Like,
but also with just talking about how there's less and less places to just normally interact with people, like bookstores even a magazine stand, all that stuff. Like, there's so much stuff that you consume online or by yourself that those places of interaction are dwindling. So almost all you're left with is passing someone on the street. That might be the only time you see somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you still go out, you still grab your Panera or whatever. Like, you know, what's stopping you from going over to someone then and being like, hey, do you mind if I sit down with you, talk to you, or something like that? Like, you know, there's still traditional ways you can go about things.
And also,
I mean, the world has changed. When I was, like, younger, like, I'd go out and I'd look for people to hook up with. Like, I know someone who uses, like, an app, and they just, like, thumbs up or thumbs down people, and then you find out if people mutually thumb up to you, and you can, like, choose to meet up with them or communicate with them through that. I think it's Grindr or...
No, Grindr's for gay dudes.
Well, they still... but still, it's an app that people are using.
I don't know if that's the one your friend's using, but...
What's the other one, though?
Tinder.
Tinder, yeah.
The swipe
sounds
one.
Exactly the same. In fact,
it's close, yes.
In fact, Grindr sounds more like... Actually, like...
A hookup app.
Yeah, I guess Tinder, what? Because you're starting a flame?
Kindling, yeah.
Yeah, like, but, yeah, I don't know. I think it definitely has changed in that aspect. But also, it's kind of interesting because you're very clearly saying, like, I am open for this. Whereas, you know, if you're going out for a drink with your friends, maybe you're just going out for a drink with your friends. You don't want to have people going like, hey, baby, what's up? And it's like, no, I'm trying to catch up. We went to school together. We haven't talked in 2 years. Like, you know?
There are also, there's also apps where, like, you could put in, it's almost like a Match.com type of app thing, where it'll put out whatever signal, and if you're near someone with the same app and you're compatible, it'll say, like, hey, someone's here that blah, 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 blah. And it'll, like, alert you to that.
I think these apps in the future will be so great when, like, we've finally cured all STDs. And, like, it's not, like, that's, like, not the problem. Like, the only problem is maybe being, like, kidnapped or, like, you know, like, things like that, which are still serious problems. But at least, you know, if you know for a fact that you can use this thing faithfully, that, like, you could just go around and be like, hey, people looking to hook up.
It's like, man, I wish I had this in the 60s.
Yeah, that must be, like,
awesome.
Heaven for, like, great-looking horny people.
Or
you know?
people
like,
in the 60s would be like, what the fuck do you need that app for? We just did that shit anyway.
Well, I just whipped it out and showed it to enough people, and
shit
eventually, you know, sexual harassment didn't exist back then. So
there's also, like, all right, so how do you feel about something like that where, to take it back to this video, in particularly, she was, let's say, you know, she was attractive, good-looking, curvy, and was wearing clothes that accentuated all of that?
That's her prerogative, though. That's
okay,
what she wants to wear,
but someone I talked to brought up these points that were good, and actually, he would be awesome to try to get on one day because he always has, like, just good points about everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, he is good at these social things, let's say. So anyway, he was saying, all right, but look at and it's not like it's a fine line, because then you get people that be like, oh, so if she was raped, it'd be okay because she asked for it. That's totally not what is being said here. So I want to make that clear. But when you wear certain clothes, it's based on sex appeal. So now, if you appeal to somebody sexually, how much of it is it, like, where's the line of not maybe whose fault or whatever it is of someone approaching you in that way, but that's what, you're wearing clothes that have sex appeal, and you're trying to appeal to someone through sex. Like,
I don't know, like, men tuck in their shirts, and that brings more attention to their dick. But if someone was actually like, hey, Josh, nice dick, you'd be like, whoa, dude, well, no, like, again, fuck off.
All right, without a doubt. But if I had my zipper down, my dick out, and somebody said that, I'd be like, well, maybe I shouldn't walk around with my dick out.
But, like, you probably, like, you know, you don't notice that you are accentuating that thing. That's the purpose of, like, people, like, men when they dress nice, tucking in their pants, because it draws attention to your waist, you know? But if someone actually, you know, said that, like, it'd be strange.
Hey, I like the way you that shirt makes your dick look.
Yeah, like, you know, but, you know, at the same token, like, you know, what clothes are really available for people to, I mean, for women to not be, like, in a situation, like, sure, you have, like, you know, t-shirts that, like, the neck comes all the way up, but that doesn't look very comfortable, to be honest. Like, I like to wear a little chest hair out because, like, it's you know, comfortable around my neck. Like, maybe that's the situation. Like, it's just more comfortable not to have clothes draped over the top of your breasts because the heat doesn't get out or whatever, you know? Boob sweat's a thing, you know? Like, maybe it's just, like, you know, wearing cleavage helps them breathe a little better, you know? And I don't think that, like, you know, you can judge people based on that. But, I mean, even if, like, so if you were to dress with today's, like current trend, today's current trend is wearing sports bras and wearing transparent clothing. You know, like, and to a degree, like, you could say, like, you could fault those people for wearing transparent clothing, but at the same time, you know, can you end up faulting someone who's, like, trying to stay, you know, in like, what's popular?
Well, then maybe, because then maybe that's actually not for you if you don't like what comes along with it.
I mean, like, okay, so, for example, like, I know you wear a flat-brimmed hat. I could see you're wearing a flat-brimmed hat. Like, if I associate, it's curved?
Yeah.
Oh, he rocks the curve.
It's very slight. It's very slight.
I
It
saw
almost doesn't
someone
count.
recently. He had like a cage to
It
put his
almost
hat
doesn't.
in, so it didn't lose the flatness of the brim. And like, there's definitely certain like judgments that come along with that. And like, I mean, you understand that that's like a reality, but you still choose to wear it because you know that like that's what you like to wear.
I mean, it was the same
You know?
thing growing up, just saying that I love hip hop. You know what I'm saying? That this is what I listen to all the time.
Yeah,
like,
you still get that now.
Yeah,
for sure.
but without a doubt. And it's just, it's something that kind of goes along with the territory. And you're either going to be like, well, this is what I like, so fuck you, I don't care what you think. Or, you know, you're not even correct in thinking that, and here's why. Or you're going to be like, well, maybe I'll listen to this instead.
Yeah,
You
so,
know?
I mean, in a situation where it's, like, women's clothing, like, that could be what they want to wear, and fuck you for, you know, being, you know, for wanting to play bongos on them or whatever, like, you know, like, that's what they choose to wear, and, like, it's what they feel makes them look good, you know, and so, like, it's kind of hard to say that, like, and I know you're not saying, like, she's asking for it or whatever, but it's kind of hard to say that, like, anyone's at fault other than the person who is, like, breaking the social barrier of, like, not calling attention to people's genitals, you know, like...
I also, like, never gets brought into it a lot when you talk about, like, male-female relationships and stuff, is, like, the actual biology of it as well. Like, because it's all subconscious and stuff, like, things that nobody really... You don't know that it's happening. You don't know what puts, thought into, like, the physiology of it. And it's like, if she's walking around looking like that, she's basically saying, like, hey, I'm good to have kids with, and I can take care of them.
I don't really know, though.
It's
like,
weird. It gets totally overlooked in the type of society that we are in, but that from evolution and stuff, like, that's what it was all so many years ago, and we still have so much of that. You just don't realize it because of the way we live. So, and again, I'm not saying, like, it makes it okay for someone to be like, hey, bitch, nice ass. Again, I'm real big on being respectful about the way you go about it, and then recognizing when you're losing this battle and you need to back off, you know?
Yeah, but I don't think there's any way to be respectful about, like, just being like, hey, to a random person on the road.
There is, because you can legitly go, hi, how you doing? And they could be like, meh, and you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, but, like, okay, so if they were waiting at a bus stop and you walked up to them and you're like, hey, how you doing? And, like, you were both waiting at the same bus stop, like, I feel like that's completely different than crossing paths with someone and now, like, you're changing the trajectory of where you're going. Like, that almost puts off, like, a very intimidating thing to someone. Like, you're now changing what you were doing is now ancillary to following this person and talking to them. And, like, that's gotta be, like, creepy as fuck, you know?
Would it be,
like,
alright, so...
As a man, that would be creepy as fuck if someone did that to me. And, like, you know, like, I'm a man, I feel like I could probably hold my own in a situation, but, like, yeah, something like that. Like, okay, an example, I was out, we were attempting to do a bar crawl in the city, and it was me, my girlfriend, her cousin, her sister, and her sister's friend. And this one random guy, like, was walking the opposite direction of us, and then suddenly he just stopped walking in that direction and started walking along with us and trying to talk to us. And we were basically just like, what on earth do you think you're doing? How do you think this is okay? Like, you know, like... And it's, like, very clear that his intentions weren't, like, good intentions at that point. Like, he basically looked at us and went, oh, those are some hot chicks, myself included, and was like, you know, I should follow up on this, you know?
What if you didn't see him, like, you guys are in your own conversation or whatever it is, you didn't see him walk the opposite way of you past you and turn around, and so you thought he would just caught up to you at, let's say, a stoplight or something like that, crossing the street or whatever it was. Would it be a little less creepy that now, alright, so he's just next to us now and he started talking to us? Or that'd be a little more acceptable?
It'd be a little... I mean, okay, so if he just randomly started talking to us, like if he was just like, hey, you guys look like you're having a good time, you want to talk? Like, that'd be weird. But say, like, we were talking about, like, oh, yeah, Charlie Sheen's such an asshole, 2.5 Men sucks. And then all of a sudden he was like, yeah, I don't understand how 2.5 Men's still on TV. And we ended up walking along with him, like, okay. Like, we know we've made some sort of connection of ideals to, like, walk alongside of each other or whatever. But, like, if we were just walking and, like, he probably just saw, like, you know, attractive women and was like, oh, I'm going to walk with them now. Like, you know, that's weird.
There's also, I think it goes, again, maybe a little overlooked, the probably huge population of girls that may not be, quote-unquote, labeled as attractive, or that this type of stuff doesn't happen to, that, you know what, if it happened once or twice, again, this video was like 100 times in 10 hours, but if it happened a few times, they would kill for it to happen as half as often as it just happened to that girl.
Well, but I think, you know, it all once again comes down to how you do things. So if
Agreed.
you know, you're walking down the street and then suddenly once again someone changed their trajectory of where they're walking, that's creepy. Whereas like if, you know, you were crossing someone and you went like, hey, that outfit's really nice, you know, that might be like might come off as really nice. Like, I've been stuck in, like an elevator with people, and I'll just be like, hey, your shoes are really nice, you know? And, you know, that does...
I've only noticed them because I'm trying to look at your dick, though.
But, like, you know, sometimes that's the case, is, like, you know, you're looking at someone, you think they're really hot, and then, like, you know, you end up noticing things about them to actually say, like, oh, that looks really nice.
Now, what...
But, like, you know, you know to, like, socially not to, like, be the Iceman killer and be like, hey, baby, you're looking good, and, like, just, like, not have any social cues about it, you know?
So what about culturally in stuff like movies where it's normal to be like, oh, if you see someone, because they all start with just, you know, you saw a girl that's attractive, you run across the street or something, you're hopping cars, or you saw her at an elevator, you didn't say anything, and then you see her the next day, you're like, oh, this might be I can't believe I got this chance again, you know, and they go out of their way to try to talk to someone. And I'm not, like, it's just prevalent in a lot of that. But now, if anybody ever did that in real life...
Well, I mean, you know...
not looking like Ryan Gosling.
It was also, like, you know, if you compare our current stories to the stories of, like, olden times, it was also common to fight dragons. But, like, you know... Like, that doesn't happen.
Well,
and, like, in situations of, like, these movies, like, they actually do things that are kind of fucked up, like, in a general sense. Like, most romantic comedies are about, like, a guy falling for a girl and, like, not being able to get her, and then just keep pushing on until eventually, like, you wear her down and she says yes.
Which in real life...
is fucking really creepy.
Yeah, it gives you a restraining order.
You know? Like, and in all reality, if you think about it, like, okay, you do want to have a physical attraction to the person that you're with, right? But, like, you don't want that to be the sole purpose that they started talking to you. Like, you don't want them to, like, see you and just be like, wow, this person's beautiful, I've got to talk to them.
I feel like 9 times out of 10, that's probably how it starts.
It probably is, but, you know, when it's, like, a random person on the street, that's completely different than, like, a random person that you've been hanging out with for, like, a little bit or whatever, like, happens to be in your circle of friends or whatever, and, you know, they just happen to be the best looking, and you want to get to know them better, you know?
And it's also... one of the first things, not only the first thing you're going to notice, but how many times are you in a situation where the first thing you hear or know of somebody is, like, them talking about whatever subject or whatever it is. Like, almost all the time it's going to be, like, it's going to be visual. It'd be like you saw them wherever it was, even if it's just hanging out with friends of friends, this and that. You might not have been in the circle of their discussion at that night, but whatever it is, you're seeing them first.
I mean, okay, so I'm not going to play it off like I've never just asked, like, random people out or whatever, but, you know, I really do feel like there is a way to go about it to make, you know, people feel comfortable about the situation and not try to intrude on their boundaries, you know? Especially, I mean, in my situation, I'm, like, a really awkward person when I'm not, like, presenting stuff like I am now, which I probably still sound awkward.
Sounds a little awkward, but
you know, like,
overall,
in general, I'm a pretty awkward person. So if I'm coming up to you and talking to you, it's already, like, kind of awkward. And I'm, like, a little, like you already feel like you have the upper hand on me because I don't even know how to fucking string words together. And then, you know, like, you do it in, like, a nice way. Like, you know, like, I feel like... and it should be obvious to most people, like, what a nice way to go about talking to a woman is, whereas, like, going up to them and just being like, hey...
You know what?
I don't know.
That, I totally agree, because that's my biggest takeaway from it, is the way you do it, and then, when and the way to stop doing it, basically, too. So knowing when it's not wanted, it's not working, she's not playing hard to get, you need to stop.
Yeah, like I saw someone in the comments for that video. They were talking about how, like, oh, I hate getting catcalled, because they actually work in New York City. They hate getting catcalled. Wouldn't personally be a person that, like, you would think of as a person who would be getting catcalled at. But evidently she does receive that, and, it's unfortunate for her. But at the same time, she then cited a different story where she was out on, I guess, like a smoke break, and someone started talking to her. And, like, they were both happened to be in the same place, and she was, like, very put off by it. And so, there's two sides to the coin. Like, obviously, there are people who get completely, like, put in horrible situations from situations like that. But at the same time, like, what is a situation that's okay for you then?
Exactly.
Are dating websites the only thing that actually applies for you? Or, like, what makes that situation okay, and when is that okay?
And now, so, that's when you said it, like, people, like, you would think people would know what's correct. I feel like I can make the argument, since there's less and less actual interaction with people and things like that, and everyone's always stuck on their computer or their phone, that you're going to have more of a generation that actually don't know how to handle that and can't socially, don't know the social ins and outs of what's appropriate and how to actually talk to people. Because they see it, because, like, when you do it, whether even you're just being sarcastic or whatever, on a Facebook comic or on Twitter and this and that, and that's all you see. It's like, well, why can't I just do that when I'm using real words and talking to them in real life?
Yeah.
What
I actually ended up doing with someone, like, I had a conversation with them, like, for a period of time, like, over whatever, through whatever acquaintance. And eventually I just said to them, instead of being like, hey, you guys want to hang out or whatever, I just said, like, hey, I'm the only Eric Fox Jackson in the world. Add me on Facebook. And, like, now they're, like, an acquaintance through Facebook, and if I wanted to, I'm sure I could say, like, hey, you guys want to hang out? And now they know, like, I'm, like, a real tangible person, like, I'm not just, like, a creepy face attached to nothing, like, I have, like, this entire, like, I post things about my family on Facebook, and me and my girlfriend and stuff.
Now you're just a creepy face that are attached to people.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But, I don't know, I feel like there's always ways to go about things, but yeah, I mean, if you're fucking looking for people, go on a fucking dating website. Those people are all looking for people, Like, that's something, like, if you think about it, like, okay, that has dwindled, like, there's less places to go meet people.
I think you were kind of talking shit about Tinder, but now you're like, yeah, just use Tinder.
Well, no, but so...
Yeah, fuck that, go use it.
Yeah, you know what, though, when it comes down to it, though, like, okay, there are, like, these gray areas like this. Like, I actually constantly see, like, because I love Reddit, and I love Ask Reddit specifically, because you get to see so many people's perspectives on things. But a lot of Ask Reddits are, like, as an adult, how do I, like, fucking meet people? Because, like, people, they'll, you move to Nashville, and, like, how many people do you know other than, like, your coworkers? And, like, how are you going to go about, like, making new acquaintances? And, like, that's, like, a hard thing for people. But
you know what? That's actually, like, I mean, and I when I moved out, like, I moved to Ohio, I actually knew a couple people there, and then they all had, obviously, a circle of friends, so it wasn't that bad. But, and I guess so you went to school there, so it's a little easier, too, because when you're in school, it's obviously easier to meet people, So some of that probably crossed over, but I guess it would definitely be harder if you moved somewhere for work, like if your job moved you to Texas, and you're fucking 35 or whatever. It's going to be a little harder to meet people, or even if it's just a 20-something, and you're out of school, and you have to be moved somewhere because of work. Like, how do you go about now just meeting people, especially if you're someone who doesn't drink?
Well, so that's what I was saying, is that in all reality, that's always been hard. There's always been, like, these stigmas to doing these things, right? And you just have to be the right kind of, Ryan Gosling looking person to be able to be like, hey, and then people will talk to you. Like, you can't look like the three of us and just walk up to random people and be like, hey, how you doing? You like my gigantic forehead? Like, like,
especially with that fucking voice.
So like that. So in all reality now, what I could do is like go on meetup.com if I wanted to make friends and, find people that like whatever my interest is and, meet up with a group of people. And then from there, I know those are people looking for friends, talk to those people and hopefully get,
Everything ties back to using basically technology and stuff like that and doing stuff online when I guess the point of it at first for me is like, how do you not do that anymore. Like, it's almost like, you know what, just real life social interaction as a first step is just not allowed anymore.
Well, but think about the amount of people that you see that are just like herbs, like, you know, like like the amount.
That's a great throwback. A throwback this there. I love it.
Like my parents are like. I almost used a word that has a completely different connotation. But my parents, like, they have a lot of fun. Like, they go out, they, like, go to a lot of parties and stuff. Like, they're very social people. But there's tons of people that I'll tell that to, and they'll be like, my parents just fucking sit around and watch, like, Ancient Aliens all day. Like, that's all they fucking do. And, like, so, like, you know, there's an entire subsection of the world that's just completely complacent with the fact that, like, oh, I'll never talk to people. And in all reality, actually, the reason that my parents are those people is because, they have always been sort of social people, but at one point they had, like, a meetup group where they made, like, a movie group, and they made a certain subsection of friends from that they stuck with and stuff like that, you know? Like,
I almost was going to say, yeah, but they're from a generation that didn't have all this technology, like, all the time. But then you were like, yeah, no, that's where they met all these friends.
And, you know, my parents are definitely
killed my arguments,
like,
no.
They're definitely not the perfect example, because, like, they used to sell computers.
Drugs.
Like, they used to sell drugs. They used to sell, like, computers and stuff, and, like, you know, like, emerging technology sort of stuff. Like, my parents were so, like, my mom, when I got what everyone calls now a tablet, you know, for drawing on my computer, my mom was like, oh, you got a digitizer? And, like, because that's what they used to call them when they were a new thing. They're called digitizers, you know? And, like, so, like, they know about all this stuff, and, like...
They've always been on the forefront of it.
Yeah, they're kind of,
known about it.
They were the vanguard at one point of all this stuff, and now, like, now I'll walk in and my mom, like, sometimes I'll actually say to her, like, I think you're intentionally pretending like you don't know this stuff. Like, because, like, she, like... You know, she's used everything from, like, a Mac 2 that was, like, black and white to, like, you know, every iteration of Windows. And, like, you know, she'll find these, like, periods of time where I'm like, wait, Mom, so you're doing all of this just to do this one thing? Like, you could just be pressing, like, left and enter, you know, repeatedly.
You can skip these 19 steps that you got.
Like, you know, and so, yeah.
It's going to be just one of those weird things, again, like, 100 or 200 years from now, where, like, the last generations of people that, you know, met real people, like, in public, like, after they're all gone, you're just gonna is it gonna just be a whole bunch of, like, socially awkward people?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, I think.
You think?
I think
You're cutting in and out a little there.
Oh, was I?
Yeah.
What about now?
Now, yeah, you're good.
All right, word.
All right, so I thought you were actually going to say something after that, like, oh, so you can hear me. I sound good now? All right, I'm done.
No, I don't want to go through that again.
No, actually,
they were on.
Well, I was going to say,
I think that there will be a lot more socially awkward people, but you notice, technically, or traditionally, what happens is I do think we'll go through some sort of a backlash.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what, especially when you have the group of people that remember it one way and the group of people that don't know it any other way, and it's moving more towards that way of the people that don't know it any other way. When there's more of those than the people that knew how it used to be, you're going to get that until it's like way past the fact, and the people that remember back in the day don't exist anymore, like fucking almost like Demolition Man.
Well, so think about, like, you know, that's already sort of started happening. So one of the big things that's come of all these people, like, growing up through YouTube and stuff like that is that, you know, they've had a screen in front of them that they've been able to berate people, like, miles away without getting any sort of repercussions or without seeing their actual emotions on their face. And that's actually caused, like, this raise in bullying, and it's made it so, like, now if you are, I know in New York State at least, if you're to go get your teaching certification, you have to go through DASA training. DASA is, like, a law that was passed on, like, about bullying, and so it's become such a thing where people, like, they have less of this social context of how they're affecting people, that they've just been doing these things more, and then now they have these reactions to it of making, like, basically, like, there's been, like, a huge zero tolerance thing with bullying, which zero tolerance is never the way to go with anything, but, you know, like, there's been this huge backlash about that now. So I don't know that, you know, there isn't going to constantly be backlashes about, things that are like, social things that become wrong. But also at the same time, what it means to be a social person might also be an evolving thing. So whereas previously in a time long gone by, being a social person might have been completely different than being a social person in 1960 would be completely different than being a social person in 2020, and it's just a matter of those shifts are happening quicker in a lot of things, and especially in communication and information technology and stuff like that. Those shifts happen so quickly that you're basically a generation looking at the next generation going, what the fuck am I looking at,
It's the changing definition of from generation to generation.
Like, think about, there was a whole period of time in which, people in art were trying to capture exactly what they saw. And the highest form of making art was capturing closer to what you saw and less about what you were interpreting. And then all of a sudden around World War I, Pablo Picasso turned the world on its head with Cubism, and, all of a sudden there was this world of abstract expressionists and all these other things, and so suddenly, things were just shifting quicker, and it's just because, communication is completely different. Communication was revolutionized during World War I and World War II, and so in turn, people started talking to each other more and exchanging these ideas, and these ideas started exchanging quicker.
But it wasn't so much, though, that, all right, people that did realism or something like that, it wasn't considered good art anymore or high art. It just, something else crept in there, was oh, this can be considered high art as well.
Yeah.
This is really good too. So, I'm not sure if it totally translates with more of an act. Because being social is a little abstract of a term anyway, We just attribute it to what we know as of right now. And like you said, 1940 might have been real different, how you describe the social person.
So that's what I'm saying. We attribute it to what we know now. And so realism used to be the vanguard, that used to be the what we know now. And then suddenly the zeitgeist became about these ideas that were completely different and completely new, and suddenly people were like, wait, maybe this is a thing. So maybe in a few generations, people are going to be like, oh, well, that's just how people communicate. And it's going to be a normal social thing.
But I'm saying, right now, you can look at both of those forms as art, as good and high art. I don't know if you're looking back at a 1940s person, you're not gonna call that person social anymore compared to maybe someone now, or more, or maybe you're saying they were more social compared to someone 20 years from
or
now.
less social. For
I'm saying either way, I could go either way.
But the way that now, we try to abbreviate things as much as possible throughout text, but at the same time, movies can still become more verbose and stuff like that. We can have people that are, we have movies that are completely based on, exposition and stuff like that, and, that could never go away. We could still consider things art while there's still ththings that are being considered, the norm.
I didn't get to see the movie Her, but the concept's very interesting.
Yeah, I heard that's really good movie.
Yeah. I really didn't hear either way was good or bad, but I just know the concept of it and the theme of it, and it's interesting, especially again, probably in a time when we're not around to even see it, but couple hundred years down the road when you can't, it gets harder and harder to tell the difference between a human and a robot and something that concept's going to be really just how we debate about whether you want the car driving for you and doing it yourself. Will you be able to have some type of relationship with a fucking robot?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just look at fucking a sex toy in adult places. Man, you can fuck all sorts of things already. So, does it get less weird when it's someone that might be able to have a conversation with you that's not human?
Well, even the way that the social things change, my girlfriend works in a very progressive place because she's working at a design firm right now, but, they were actually talking about fleshlights the other day at work. So, in the same exact thing, you were just talking about, sex toys. They were actually talking about sex toys at work, which might have not been a thing previously, even at, a design firm, So who knows how things are shifting. And, the things that people talk about publicly, I feel are completely different than things people used to talk about publicly. And I wonder if that's in part because we can be exposed to this information without someone there to be embarrassed by it. People online can talk about how they poop. And, you know, not be embarrassed about talking about that. And then suddenly half the world will realize that, like, I've actually seen this. So this is an exact example. That a large number of people realize that, like, the other half of the world doesn't stand up when they wipe their ass. They do it while sitting down. And, like, their minds were blown. And, like, would you have ever actually talked about that with your friend? Would you be like, hey, man, when I wipe my ass, I'm sitting down? Like, that would never even come up. But it comes up in this internet context.
Where do they stand up to wipe their ass?
Right? How do you stand up and wipe your ass? Don't your butt cheeks get in the way?
Like,
are you some sort of dog person where your butthole is, like, outward surface? Like, something, I don't get it.
What if you thought you were done, or you thought everything felt, something dripped? Like, I don't know, it's so weird. It gets so messy.
Yeah, I don't know.
They do this all over the world, apparently?
Yeah.
Is this true?
This is totally true. This is totally true.
How do they even know this?
Because someone said, like...
People talk now and you can just reach anybody, so they're they put all the dots together?
Like I said, I love Ask Reddit threads, and people will be like, Ask Reddit, what is something that, like, you always wondered if other people do?
This sounds like troll material. It really does.
But no, people really do it. Like, you can find people that will really do it. And I'm sure there's one person right now listening to this going, wait, people wipe their ass while sitting down?
Well, all right. Yeah, I guess that could happen.
Yeah. You know,
I thought you were going to go the other way. I'm like, yeah, no, that's what my reaction just was.
Yeah, that was totally my reaction when I saw that people wipe their ass standing up. It seems like you wouldn't get all of it. I don't get it. But the thing is, we would have never had this fucking conversation ever if it wasn't for someone having that lack of social cue to talk about this shit.
I guess, I mean,
literally.
Obviously, there's always a plus and minus to everything. So, yeah, you can use fucking YouTube comments to fucking bully someone and not connect the emotion to it. And it goes just the same way. You can talk about something embarrassing and not feel like it's you up there, giving a speech to everybody, because you can kind of hide behind the keyboard. And it trickles into actual social fucking environments, like at work and stuff, like the story you just told. So I guess there are things that do help with that. And talking about when, we started with, like, movies and music and what's shocking and not, like, that helps too, because people see it. So if everybody, if it's a certain movie that, like, that was big and popular and everybody saw and had certain language in it or was talked about a certain subject, now you're going to feel more free to just talk about that in a setting like work with your coworkers or something like that, because you're pretty confident that everybody knows about it, because everybody saw that shit, or the majority of people did. Yeah,
I mean, like, for example, and this is, like, an example that, honestly, I did not wish existed, but one time my cousin brought up, like, very, like, earnestly, without, like, any regard for bringing it up, he brought up 2 Girls, 1 Cup, which was, like, the thing to me that was the least of my worries, because then he brought up One Man, One Jar, which, if you don't know what it is, you probably don't want to know. And then he brought up, I think it's called, like, 3 Guys, 1 Hammer, or something like that. And so, okay, so the first one is poop porn, which actually I did research because my friend actually, like, assaulted me with this movie. I was sitting in the front seat of my car. We weren't driving because this would be horrible. And he pulled it up on his laptop, and then he took his laptop and, like, put it in front of my face. So, like, his arms were around me. Like, I couldn't go anywhere. So then I had to research it because I'm thinking, like, you can't just eat poop.
Yeah, that
you'll die.
Real, right?
You'll get sick. So I found out it's actually like chocolate ice cream in most of those, like, scat films and stuff like that. It's usually something that they've made to look like poop. Like, they take brownie bites and squish them and soak them in a little water and it looks like poop.
Thank God.
But, the one after that, One Man, One Jar, is a guy trying to fuck himself with a jar.
And I've heard of that one.
It's glass, so it doesn't work. Your ass is pretty strong. So I guess you could say his ass was glass. And, it did not go over well. I don't want you to know the rest of it if you haven't figured it out.
I can use my imagination, so I'm pretty sure I figured it out.
And then the fucking last video, that's just 2 guys killing another guy with a fucking hammer.
I actually saw that one.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, why did that become a thing that people watch?
Yeah.
Like, I remember a period of time where Faces of Death was, like, a thing that you whispered about. You were like, yeah, man, you ever see the Bud Dwyer video? Like, we're one of 5 people that we know that have seen that. Like, meanwhile, like, now, like, half the students that I've had have probably seen this guy with a fucking broken jar up his ass. And it's like, my God, like, what is going on in, like, this world, Like, what's...
You know what? And it's crazy. again, it's like from generation to generation, it just gets pushed forward, and everybody from the previous one thinks that about what's going on right now. You know, because I mean, even with something as simple as just rock and roll music was like that. You know, that was their one guy, one jar.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh my God, how could somebody do this or be into this or whatever? You know, like.
Actually, speaking of people being desensitized to things, I feel like it, and this is going to wrap around to something that happened locally here, which I don't know if it's actually international news or what, but, well, international. I don't know if it's national news or...
national news, but...
but so, like, basically what happened was, 2 days ago, I went to the school. One of the professors of Farmingdale University was decapitated by, I believe, her son, and then the son walked out onto the street with this decapitated body, walked up to the train station, and walked in front of the train. There was a person I actually personally know who on Facebook was posting about it because she works down the block, and one of her customers saw this, thought it was a Halloween prank, took a picture of it, and sent it to her. So she actually saw the picture, not even knowing it was something real.
Yeah.
Now, in my head, I'm wondering actually now, in 1960, do you think if people saw that, they would have been like, oh, such a realistic Halloween prop, you know? Or do you think people would have been like, holy fuck, you know? Like, and I wonder if it's becoming this thing where some people are becoming so far removed from violence that when they actually see it, it doesn't seem real. I mean, I've seen, like, you know, those pictures of, like, you know, the cartels chopping people up and stuff like that. And when you look at it, you almost can't even believe it's real because you've never seen anything like that in your actual life, you know? So you actually have the ability to look at that. Whereas, you know, I could see a laceration in someone's leg, and that to me is something real from my life. So, like, that will freak me out. But, like, seeing that, like, I'm not saying I'm not freaked out by seeing, like, all these, like, dismembered corpses, but, like, there's something about it that to me, when I look at it, it doesn't seem real. And I wonder if that's part of our generation, seeing all this stuff so readily as fake, you know?
It definitely, I think it does have something to do with that. I also think a lot of times people just don't believe that they're going to be in that situation, you know? Like, they're like, I don't know if it's subconscious or real quick, that's just going, all the options go through their head. It's like, all right, am I really going to encounter someone who's actually decapitated, or are the chances better that this is an elaborate Halloween costume or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
You know? I think that plays into it too. There's like, there's no way, it's like winning the lottery. Like, there's no way my ticket's going to be the winning ticket. Like, there's no way I'm going to be the one who fucking took the picture of the actually decapitated person in the middle of Farmingdale, you know?
Yeah, and what's funny is the person who probably actually spotted that all this shit was going on was probably someone who's always suspicious of shit. So, like, they're probably added to it. Like, they're always looking at that guy like, why is his pants down so low? What's he up to? You know? And, like, but now they happen to actually see something real. And, like, you know, I always knew I had a gift for these things.
Yeah. Did you, speaking of it's national news and that, did you hear about that at all?
No, not at all, really.
I mean, it just happened yesterday, but...
Yeah, that speaks to that, too, that I haven't heard anything. These things have been desensitized, and, you know...
It might be... It's like a New York rapper. You just don't hear about him in Nashville.
Yeah, bro. They have no respect for Jada. And frankly, I'm tired of it.
There's did you hear the there's a song with a new one with Lil Wayne and the Lox. Weird combo. Did you happen to hear it?
What is it called?
I actually don't know the name of the song. I don't remember off the top of my head. I just saw it like last night. I didn't even listen to the song yet, but it's a Lil Wayne featuring the Lox song.
I'll have to listen to that on the car on the way back to work today, but
and that's just another weird thing about how we consume music, I guess, because I feel like, and not that I'm not like really a Lil Wayne fan like that, but him and the Lox together is interesting to me, right? That's an interesting combo. I'd like to see how that song came out.
Yeah, see where Wayne is kind of inserted in the music. How much do they get one you know, verse? Do they each get half a, you know? Yeah,
no, I'm very interested to see.
Yeah, is very interesting for sure.
I'm definitely interested to see how that song is, but you know what? If I actually never hear it, like if I don't listen to it this week, I'll probably never listen to the song. Probably like never hear it. You know?
If I don't listen to it in the car on the way to work today, I'm never going to listen to it.
And that's what's weird about it. Like, back in the day, I'd be like, oh, I got to find what mixtape that's on or who's fucking playing it. And, like, I'm going to need to hear that. Now it's almost like, yeah, if I fucking forget to listen to it today, then what the fuck ever.
Yeah, but you think that maybe it's because now hip-hop is sort of, at the 30-year point, and it's going through the same changes that rock and roll is going through. For instance, my father and I were talking about how, like, the Beatles, my dad loves the Beatles, and he always gives me all their ridiculous stats, but they sold, particular year, they sold half of all the singles in the United States. That type of stuff's just not going to happen anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's actually, 2014 would be, like, the first year that no album went platinum. Like, nobody sold 1 million copies of an album. And even the powerhouses that we talked of before, like Beyonce, spanning generations now, her album only reached about 850,000, and it's technically not even a 2014 album, it was 2013.
That thing that she put out that was viral?
Yeah, the one with, like, no promotion, she just came out. I mean, it's had a lot of, and it's a good album, it had a lot of hit singles on it and stuff like that. And obviously her name is going to sell some albums, but not even she went platinum. And that's arguably one of the biggest artists there is right now, you know? And again, it's close to platinum, but it's from an album that didn't even come out this year. So technically wouldn't even count if it did go platinum. It would still be a 2013 album. So no album that came out this year went platinum. There's been a bunch of singles and stuff like that. Like, singles have gone platinum. There are, like, obviously there's music being sold, but the way we consume it, again, it's just they're not selling like they did, you know?
But that's really just circular, though, because 45s, when my dad was a kid, once again, was, that's what we were selling is singular, songs with a B-side. Mm-hmm. And then, we got to the tape era where, cassettes, and then it started becoming fashionable to purchase entire albums. So, maybe we're just circling back to that period in time where, we're buying music 4 minutes at a time, not an hour and 20 minutes at a time anymore.
Without a doubt, I totally agree with that. Like, it's definitely, and has to do with the attention span as well. And it trickles down to the way people make albums. I don't think people make albums as albums anymore. They make it like, all right, I need this hit single. So, and if I can get 2 or 3 of them onto this album, then that'd be great. It's not like something you can put on from track 1 to track 12 or 13 or 14, and it'd be a cohesive work that works well together.
Yeah, well, especially you have to consider a lot of the people that are, like, making these charting singles and stuff like that. A lot of them, like, it's not even one person making the entire album. It's like, one
not even one person making the single.
Yeah,
the single.
Yeah, like, and one person will come in. They'll do one song. A producer will say, "Oh, well, we have a good album so far, but we're gonna need something like this." And then they'll call up, whoever, Timbaland, and he'll put a track on there.
That being said, though.
Timbaland.
There are albums like Reasonable Doubt and Illmatic that are great albums that do have that element of someone produced almost every, different songs. A few of them might have produced more than one on the album, but it's not one producer or anything like that.
Well, that's why I said, like, charting music and those popular singles, because, like, I mean, my favorite bands make, concept albums and stuff like that where, like, you can hardly even tell where the last song ended and the next one starts.
Yeah.
But, that's in rock music and that's in, non-charting stuff for me. So, yeah, I feel like the stuff that charts, it's usually they figure out how to do this sort of magic and make a cohesive song with whatever parts they need to, and it doesn't matter if it relates to the next thing or not.
Yeah, no, I agree that's definitely how it's made now, and that's going to be one of the reasons why, well, if it's so easy for me just to buy the songs that I like, why would I buy the whole album if you only have 2 good songs anyway?
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of the complaints. Remember how we had that the Wall in the Newburgh Mall and they never put anything on sale?
I do remember the Wall being rather pricey pretty much all the time.
And that would always be our argument. We would be complaining about it at high school.
And even
I buy this album, it only has 3 good songs on it. Why am I going to be full $20?
Yeah, I was going to say, even when they did have quote-unquote sales, they were still pretty high priced. And I'm like, what the fuck? What kind of sale is this? I'm like,
Go to Middletown and buy this for $10. It's $17.99.
yeah, I'd be like, I remember Nobody Beats the Wiz. I'd be like, yo, their regular price is less than your sale price. What is going on here?
Nobody Beats the Wiz. Oh
Yep.
man,
That was one of my favorite stores. Of like,
do those exist anymore? Or
no, those are done.
I can always remember that big Nobody Beats the Wiz scribble out in left center field of the Yankee Stadium
Yeah.
during the 90s.
They and Tower Records was one of them.
Yeah, we had a nice Tower Record down here, closed in about 07.
I bought my first actual piece of vinyl when I started DJing from Tower Records. And then usually you can get tickets for concerts there and everything. They had a lot of shit going on. You can get books and stuff at some point, I think.
I remember it's funny because like you could still, I mean, probably go to FYE and stuff like that and get tickets, but they still charge you all the stuff that they charge you online to get it.
That's so stupid.
Like, yeah, it's so ridiculous. Like you get like these like fees that they say are because you're purchasing online, like these convenience fees and stuff like that. And yeah, it's like you're still paying the same like price when you go to FYE and get the inconvenience.
I wonder how much longer they're gonna last.
Yeah,
You know, because
the one by us closed.
Is the one at Roosevelt Field closed now?
Oh no, the one at the Broadway quote unquote mall closed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nassau quote unquote mall. Broadway Mall is a mall. Nassau Mall is like those are stores.
That mall almost closed.
Yeah. Well, that mall did close and it became a BJ's. They turned a whole mall into one store.
Yeah. Yeah. But shit. What was I gonna say about these fucking Tower Records and FYE? Oh yeah, like FYE is kind of like we were talking about the Wall, where they're mostly mall based, almost all of them. There's like I think one that was by Nassau Mall wasn't, but I guess maybe it technically was, even though it's not a mall anymore. Whatever, who gives? It's semantics. So that's a mall based franchise, and they're usually going to be typically higher priced than almost anywhere else. And that playing into it a little because it is a mall-based store. So now with the ease of getting everything online, everything they sell pretty much you can get online. I mean, that goes for a lot of places, but I mean, it's more convenient and it's going to cost way less usually than having to go to FYE. And it's surprising to me, really, and I used to work at one, it's surprising to me that they haven't gone under yet with all the other ones. I mean, what other store, like especially chain store, can you think of? Like, there's no Tower, there's Nobody Beats the Wiz. Circuit City went out. They weren't just music, but they sold a lot of music. Virgin Megastores, is there one of those anymore? Like, there used to be one.
There is like the big Virgin Megastore, and I think that's it.
I was gonna say, is there still one like Times Square or wherever? Or like,
yeah, I feel like that's probably like the only one.
There's still one in Manhattan.
Because I don't even remember the last few times I was there. I don't even remember seeing it actually.
Best
I don't
Buy
know
is
if it's
pretty much the
moved.
last big box store that sells CDs.
Which one?
Best Buy?
Yeah, and I've heard stuff about them not doing well, overall. And I've been in there actually the last few CDs that I bought. I remember going in there and just being like, holy shit, it's literally like 3 racks of CDs now. That's about it.
We have one.
Whew. Well, there you go.
Some people are really serious about like their tangible items and buying like physical things, and I'm not really one of those people, so I'm not really like phased by this closing of stuff. But I can imagine, when an album drops or whatever, and the quickest way to get a tangible album is going to a store, like that being fortuitous. But as of right now, like, I mean, I do miss certain things about like tangible objects, but I don't mind like this world of digital downloads we live in. Like I have probably like 20 games on my computer and they're all like digital, like I don't have a box for them or anything, but at the same time I miss having like a cool instruction manual with like art in it and stuff,
Yeah, especially being an artist. Oh, holy shit, this is awesome. What the fuck?
Are those albums?
I thought they were Nintendo games.
That's what I thought
CDs?
at first too. Are those Nintendo
What are we
games
looking
or
at?
albums?
Yeah, they're 8-bit tapes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm mad. I lost a lot of mine when I moved to Ohio and back, but I had I was really proud of my cassette and CD collection. Like, and that's one of the things. I used to love the tangible item of buying a CD, opening it up, the fucking artwork, seeing who produced what, this and that. Like, I loved all that. So I miss that, and it does take the connection out a little with music. Like I said, saying about, certain singles that are dropping that might have been a big deal back in the day, or fucking it's basically fly by night now. If I don't hear it in the next day or so, I'm gonna forget that it was ever even fucking released. You know, and this coming from someone who plays music for a fucking living.
Well, I remember back in like the 90s, like I would go to Toys R Us or whatever, and I'd buy games based off of how cool their box was and how heavy the game felt. Just because I knew, like, okay, I'm getting like a couple CDs in here, I'm getting like a huge manual with like art in it. Like I remember I had like a copy of like Warcraft 1, and that had like a book inside of it with like full color like artwork cover, and he is currently showing us his original Duck Hunt style Nintendo system that he has the box still for.
I was just about to say, why and how do you still have that box, yeah? Like, that's pretty amazing. I've told the story a couple times. I gave away my Nintendo to, at the time, a girlfriend who is now an ex-girlfriend, so I'm never getting my Nintendo back, and it saddens me, and I've been on the lookout to get another one. I got to rebuild that library and the games and stuff.
I'm telling you, man, a Retron. If you can't buy those systems, just buy a Retron.
Did you like? Is that I have to guess that that's not the original box from like the fucking your Nintendo from the 80s. I'm gonna
see if I can show you a copyright date on it.
Yeah, I feel like I want to go with you bought it recently. Not recently, like last week, but maybe 10 or 15 years ago or something.
Oh, this is a 1988 box.
Holy shit. And you bought it in 1988?
No, I bought it off of somebody.
Oh, yeah, that's all right. So that's what I was saying. Because I remember having mine, and we certainly don't have the box anymore. That's for sure. But
did you see the Atari 2600?
Yep, my cousin had that shit. I never had that one. My cousin used to have all the fucking systems, man. He had Atari. I remember he had fucking Dreamcast and shit. Had one good game on that motherfucker. My brother actually had the Panasonic 3DO.
I remember Dreamcast, they were saying that like that stayed a system for a really long period of time and like overseas, but here it just completely like died.
Yeah.
Like supposedly it was like competing with like the PlayStation 2 and stuff overseas, but it just completely died over here.
Yeah, Sega didn't really pick up. The Genesis was only the largely successful commercial system really over here.
I was gonna say, was it Panasonic 3DO or was it Sega 3DO? Did they
3DO?
Were they joint on it or did one buy them?
Panasonic made 3DO.
Yeah, all right.
Sega made the Sega Home Entertainment System, then the Genesis, then Sega CD, then Sega Dreamcast.
The Genesis I had. I had the Sega Genesis.
Sega CD. I forgot about that.
And again, I said it was only because they had a 6-button controller for Street Fighter 2. That's why I went with it over Super Nintendo.
I remember I got rid of my Super Nintendo because I got a PlayStation, and I thought to myself, well, won't need this anymore. And we traded in my Super Nintendo, and we got one game for PlayStation, and that was Too Extreme, which, looking back, was like the worst game. Like seriously, like it was one of those games where like they didn't even have 3D graphics yet, so it wasn't like rendered 3D. It was like they like exported these 3D images, and like they were like basically like it was like old style animation, but it was like things that they made in a 3D modeling program and then made pictures from that. So
yeah,
like
that's it. Isn't that how like I think like Mortal Kombat 3 and stuff was done on Sega?
Yeah, that's how they did like the old Mortal Kombat, like Donkey Kong Country, Killer Instinct. That was all pre-rendered 3D that they just animated the same way they animated everything.
And then
else.
it almost looked like it's like taking real photos, but then putting together like a South Park cartoon.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes it would look great, but like a lot of times it would just look really clunky and weird and. You know, there were these weird periods of time. Oh, Killer Instinct. They just came out with another Killer Instinct. They came out with a sequel, and like half the characters are DLC. Like you don't even get most of the characters. Like they're like to be released.
Was it the last Killer Instinct Part 2?
And like I want to say it just came out.
I've been actually talking to someone I work with because he said he had 2 Nintendos. I was like, yo, I'll buy one. He's like, all right, cool. And that was like 6 months ago, yeah. And I gotta keep reminding him about that shit. Like, I'm on the lookout, man. I need to get another Nintendo NES. I remember when I hooked mine back up before I fucking gave it away like a fucking idiot. When I hooked it back up, like, I was playing it way more than my PlayStation. Like, for probably 2 or 3 years straight. I was playing Excite Bike again, like fucking Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Kung Fu. I was playing all that shit.
Yeah, it's funny with all the new technology coming out and all these new games. Like
Excite Bike.
I've been playing.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I yelled that out because Matt's actually putting up the games on his Skype. So I just not just yelling out titles of Kung Fu.
He was just overly excited, so he just had to excite Mike out. I don't remember what I was saying.
Yeah, sorry about that. I totally fucked up your flow.
Oh man.
Yeah, I just remember so with all these new games coming out and these new systems, I've been playing the most, and I think I mentioned this before, I've been playing, for GameCube, I've been playing Super Smash Bros. Melee with my girlfriend nonstop.
They put the new one out for Wii U.
Yeah, it's coming out soon, and meanwhile I'm playing the old one happily.
You know what that ties back to? Just as we were talking about music that resonates with us, it's connecting it with good times that you remember, Well,
so what's funny for that though is for a lot of people it would be that situation, but when I was younger, I didn't play that game, and I didn't play everybody always goes on about 007 and Halo and stuff.
GoldenEye, yeah.
I never played those games because all of my friends had already been playing them, and I didn't own those systems. I owned Super Nintendo, I owned PlayStation, so I didn't have Halo, I didn't have GoldenEye, so I never played those, so they were already so good at them that I didn't even care to play them because, I would jump in there and instantly just be killed by everyone. So I was just fuck it.
Well, it might have...
So, now Super Smash Bros. Is, a new thing for me. I've actually never, really, invested time in it,
And it might also be, since you did play the older systems, even if it's not, even if the one you're playing now is not the exact one, you were kind of, used to that type of setup and everything, graphic-wise and everything. So it'd be different, I think, now for someone... Again, who's let's say born now and 18 years from now or 15 years from now goes back and tries to play a Nintendo. They'd be like, why would I even try to play this?
Those things on YouTube that it's kids react to Game Boy.
That's a great channel. That is an amazing channel. The Kids React. I forgot their actual name of their channel, but it's easy to find if you Google it. It's Kids React to, and then it could be whatever. They've done
Game Boy, the Apple IIe computer, and there's a couple other ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. There's they did a Walkman, they did a rotary phone.
Oh, Talk Boy from Home Alone 2.
Oh my god, you remember Talk Boys and how that was pretty much a product marketed through a movie? And everyone had them, it became a thing, everyone loved them.
And then you're how the fuck is this thing stealth at all? It's a 5-pound dumbbell with a recorder on it.
It's the size of a child's head. It was still tried to sneak around with it.
Right? It was a Walkman with a mic, with an internal mic. That's all it was.
I remember my original podcasting experience was actually me and my sister would do a fake radio station with our Talk Boy, and it would really suck if we recorded a huge segment, us reciting Lion King or whatever we were doing, and we would record a huge segment. We realized we recorded on slow motion, so you could only then play it back on slow motion, because if you played it back on regular motion, it would play back like it was Alvin and the Chipmunks.
That's a pretty good impression of that, actually. It was.
Yeah, you got the chopped and screwed version now.
Have you ever heard Alvin and the Chipmunks slowed down so that Alvin and the Chipmunks are normal people, and then so what you could do is basically the songs were sung at super slow by normal people, and then they sped them up, and in turn brought the pitch up. So if you were to slow down the whole thing, they're normal people singing, but Dave is this crazy hell beast. And so in between each verse, all of a sudden Dave is just
It's actually what they use for the Inception sound.
Yeah, it's seriously that low and slow and hard, because in between each take he's yelling at Alvin or whatever, so it's Alvin, but it's slowed down from that, so it's just it's horrifying.
That's the voice that I hear when I saw that fucking thing in Hellraiser, with, the two heads or whatever it was. I picture him having that voice.
That thing in Hellraiser, the one with the two heads, you can see there's actually a person behind it pushing it. Well, you can actually see it in the movie.
You know what's so funny? I'm actually gonna go back and look for it because I didn't see the person. I don't think I did, but I do remember it being weird where it's I was looking at it because nothing touched the floor. It
Yeah.
had like legs or something, but nothing touched the floor. I'm like, how the fuck is this thing moving forward? This looks so bad.
Yeah, it's very much like on a dolly, and they have like whatever moving to make it look like it's walking,
It
but
doesn't
it's not.
look like it's walking at all.
Yeah, that was like a big thing for a period of time. Just putting something on wheels, and then like you'd put like little moving legs, and it would look like it was walking, but it's really very clearly not. you
Yeah,
know?
it was really fucking terrible, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's just so funny how and now it brings me to where like I know that person was reviewing it in like in the light of, oh hey, it's still good now, so probably watched it again, but maybe their write up is heavily influenced by what it was at the time for them. Again, you know? And maybe being a little biased with it. And not really being like, oh no, it definitely holds up. You know, let's just watch it. You can't tell? Be like, no, I think it's because maybe it was just your favorite one growing up and you're just telling me that shit now. Because if you fucking honestly watch this, you're not going to tell you know, being brand new to it, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, since we've gone back to horror movies, I think it always comes down to how you watch them. So I think if you're watching a movie in like a dark situation, ready to be freaked out, it's completely different than when you're like, oh, remember this fucking movie? And like you're watching it in the middle of the day with your buddies, and you're all like drunk, and you're like, ah, look how shitty that is, look how shitty that is, you know?
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like, you know, I've seen movies that like, in retrospect, probably weren't all that scary, but like I was alone, and like, you know, it was really dark, and like, you know, I had been reading creepy things all day on top of it. Like, I was in a mood for it. Like, you know, like, completely different than, like, you know, just being in a great mood and being like, let's watch something fucking shitty.
Exactly.
You know?
With, like, in your living room with, like, the sun pouring down.
Yeah.
Everything illuminated and, you know. I definitely agree with that. Because I remember there's times where Child's Play used to freak me out when I was younger.
Oh, my God.
And there was one that I watched, I think it was the third one, and I turned on every motherfucking light in the house. I was by myself. So, like, I was definitely in that, like, in that mind frame of, alright, I'm probably going to be really fucking scared from this.
Yeah.
Whether it's just the movie or just because I'm by myself, home alone, and it's nighttime and everything's dark. I put every fucking light in the house on, man. It's the only way I could watch that shit.
It's funny, though, because with movies, when I watch them with my girlfriend, first of all, she pauses every couple of seconds to make a comment about what happened or whatever. And also, like, she'll just be like, in the middle of the movie, we'll pause and, like, we'll leave, we'll go to sleep, and we'll come back, we'll watch the movie. And, like, so sometimes that just completely changes the pace of a movie. And so things that people will say, like, was a great movie doesn't really feel that great because you're watching it in two parts.
There's a little disconnect.
Yeah, there's, like, a disconnect. And, like, you know, there's, like, when you make a movie, like, you have this certain rhythm to it. So, like, after the intensity, you want it to come down or whatever, or you want to keep that intensity high. And, you know, going home and going to sleep is obviously going to completely change that. You know, and that's, like, it's the same thing for scary movies. If you're pausing in between to do whatever, you know, it's going to make the movie a whole lot less scary.
That's why I can't stand watching something on TV that, like, if it's a movie I wanted to see, but like it's on TV and now that I know there's gonna be commercials, I can't watch it. You know, because and for that reason, it's because how the way the film was meant to be viewed is gonna be so broken up every fucking 15 minutes with just bullshit that has nothing to do.
Yeah, and then also, like, I remember the first time I saw Pulp Fiction, I thought there was actually something about motor scooters in the movie because TBS, for whatever reason, was where I saw it, and they corrected every single version of Motherfucker with motor scooter. So I thought that movie actually had something, like, there was something about motor scooters that I wasn't getting. And
did they change Samuel L. Jackson's wallet to say bad motor scooter on it?
I think they probably just didn't even show it, or I don't even know.
That's another thing too. You miss so many, like, key things that get edited out for content when you watch it on TV as well.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that I missed the whole, like, I mean, the last scene with, like, Butch's whole, like, you know, rise and fall is, like, he's getting raped, you know? Like, yeah. And, you know, one, I probably didn't know what the fuck was going on the first time I saw the movie and I was, like, younger, but also, that was probably just completely removed from the movie. Like, all of a sudden, they were probably just, done with these guys.
So why are they friends now? What's going on? This movie sucks.
Yeah. But I know we do have to wrap up, right? Because we're getting towards 3 hours and our guest has to get on the road.
We are hitting that magic time.
Yeah.
So, we didn't actually get to touch on a lot of things that I wanted to, but it's no big deal. you'll be around again. So
Yeah, for sure, man.
we can always do this again. If there's anything you want to tell people, do it now or forever hold your peace.
Like, give them your name. I don't even think you said your name.
No, he did. Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't even remember it. So no one else does. So
the friends here.
so say your name just in case someone's like, man, I need a person to lecture about hip hop at my local community college.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me stop by. I'm Ronald Matthew Duquesne. I work at good Tennessee State University. Tigers in the house.
Oh, nice. Reppin'. I love it. Definitely thank you for coming by. Well, coming by, like you're not here, but you know what I mean. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for sending an R2 unit that had a hologram of you this whole time.
That would be pretty cool. We're going to work on that for the next one. I'm definitely coming.
I'll be on the island over Christmas, so maybe we'll get in studio.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Hit me up, without a doubt. Or I was going to say, I'll make a trip to Tennessee just to play all the video games you have. I enjoyed looking at that shelf.
No doubt. All right, boys. Hoping to talk to you guys soon.
All right, no doubt. Thank you again.
All right, peace.
Adios. It's kind of uncomfortable at the end because I guess he just closed his laptop or something. It looked like he was making us go down on him.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was gonna be like, "Yep." He's like, "Look at my nice tucked in shirt, so you can see my dick."
So one thing I will say before we finish is because Josh is such a great host, I didn't know if we had a guest today or not, so I asked him earlier, and he didn't reply, so I made a joke saying, it's Don Cheadle, isn't it? And then he gave me some sort of indication, like, it would be something close to Don Cheadle, so when I saw that Ronald Matt Duquesne was just a white guy with a beard, I was like, oh, this is not Don Cheadle at all.
You know what was so great about that to me is because I definitely that's what I put, and then you were like, "Oh, you shouldn't have said anything. You should have just like seen my reaction." And I didn't respond to that because in my head I was like, "Oh no, you're still gonna have that reaction." So I'm glad that you acknowledged that actually.
I was actually expecting to come here and see a black guy that like didn't look like Don Cheadle, but was going to be one of those guys that because he's black, people are like, oh, he looks just like so-and-so.
He's basically saying I'm a huge racist.
Yeah. Well, like, I think you were one of the people that when we were like figuring out like if we made a movie out of, which this has happened to me before, which is weird for me, but like all the people that know me closely don't agree. So several times I've had a situation where at the workplace we're like, oh, if we made a movie about this workplace, who would play who? And I think you got someone cool like Jason Statham or something, and I got motherfucking Lawrence Fishburne. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because my skin's kind of textured and I'm like light brown, but I don't know how the fuck I got Lawrence Fishburne. Not just once, a completely different workplace I got Lawrence Fishburne. And like I've tried to like ask people that like I know, like, oh, would I do that? Like, would I be Lawrence Fishburne? And they're like, no. With the exception of my girlfriend's dad, who was like psyched to be like, yeah, like awesome. Like he was so excited, like that was a good thing that I wanted. And then like when he saw that I was disappointed with it, it seemed like he was kind of disappointed with himself as well.
Who would you prefer?
I don't know actually. Like I don't know. Common? I don't know. Like I don't really know who I would think like.
But that's the thing too. Now, like when I think that, now that you said that, I could definitely see Common playing Lawrence Fishburne like 10 years from now in his biography.
Well, what's also interesting is like I feel like obligated to choose a sort of light-skinned black person because I don't know if people know I'm African American, so I'm half black, half white, and so I feel obligated to choose someone like that. Whereas people who don't really think of me as half white will just think of me as black, and they'll choose fucking anyone. I had someone tell me that I look like Jimi Hendrix, that I look like Bob Marley, who actually is half white. Like I get told I look like all these people that like just because like white people are only exposed to like a slim number of black people at times, and like they'll just be like, yeah, you look just like Lenny Kravitz, and I'm like, I wouldn't know if
any of those are like I would qualify as like, oh, you look just like. But I could see, like, oh, if they were going to play you, I could kind of see it working, maybe.
Yeah,
if somebody
I
said
guess.
fucking Wesley Snipes, I'd be like, you racist piece of shit. He looks nothing like Wesley Snipes. How could you even say that? Like,
but see, I don't have that sort of look. I wouldn't get Wesley Snipes. I would get like what's his name with the one bum eye? Who's the actor who's in Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Forrest.
Forrest Whitaker. That's what I would get. They'd be like, oh, you get like Forrest Whitaker. You'd be a good
Ghost
good
dog
choice for him. Yeah. So is that movie good? Because I downloaded that movie just out of curiosity. To see Forrest Whitaker play like a modern day samurai.
Yeah, I can't speak from actual recollection.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to watch it again too and be like, maybe I thought this was good 10 years ago. I don't know.
There's a podcast called How Did This Get Made with Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas and someone else that unfortunately I can't remember who it is. And the one they did recently was Ghost Dog, and I'm like, that gives me even more reason to actually watch this movie. The only one that they did where it was How Did This Get Made, where it wasn't like how the fuck did this movie get made, was Punisher, which actually, did we talk about this? The Punisher movie that you didn't like.
I think we like different ones. Like, I think you liked the new one, or at least thought it was okay, whatever it was. Like,
I thought it was great.
All right, yeah, and I hated it, but I liked not the original one, but the one that had John Travolta in it. I thought that one was great. Yeah,
that to me was like a flop, and the one that came after it that had no name actors in it was like amazing. It's actually, they actually took, because the director who did it, the woman who directed it, she like basically ended up directing it kind of, like, she didn't really want to direct it, but she kind of like had to in order to get other movies to direct. Mm-hmm. And so she didn't know much about the Punisher franchise, so she actually took a lot of stuff directly from the graphic novel. And the one thing that she added, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie from like 10 years ago, was there's like these crazy like parkour guys that they kind of hype up from the beginning of the movie. And then later it shows them like, and you're thinking like, oh my god, the Punisher, he's finally gonna fight these guys. And they're like doing like these crazy flips between buildings. And he just fucking shoots them with a rocket launcher and blows them up in like a second. And it's fucking hysterical. That's like the only thing that she actually added to the movie that wasn't in the comics. And it was because there was all these movies at the time that it came out with all these like breakdancing fighters and stuff like that, like they made fun of in Zoolander. And you know, she was thinking like, you know, fuck that, like why is that in all these movies, like how is that even a threat for anyone, especially like a, you know, ex like super marine, you know. So she just had him shoot him with like a heat-seeking missile and blow him up between buildings.
I was gonna say maybe it comes from like just having a combat sport background, but nothing about a parkour guy scares me. Yeah. Especially, it almost relates, like, it reminds me of the Indiana Jones scene, where the guy, like, doing the shit with the sword, he's like, well, I'll just pull out this gun, and there it is. So
do
it's
you know why that was? Because Harrison Ford and, like, most of the cast had food poisoning.
So they didn't want to do
They didn't want to shoot the scene. It was supposed to be a big sword fight between him and he was like, hey, you know, I'm really not feeling up to this. Like, you can actually see, he looks fucking dead when they shoot that scene. And, it was because he had food poisoning and they had a strict timeline. The only person who didn't get food poisoning while shooting that movie, Steven Spielberg, and supposedly it's because he just brought tons and tons of SpaghettiOs and, like, canned food from home to eat because he's such a picky eater.
Picky eater eating SpaghettiOs. That strikes me as odd.
But I mean, as a person who doesn't know about fighting sports, though, I mean, I wouldn't want to fight someone that did capoeira. They'd be probably exhausted by round two,
you know
but
what?
like I wouldn't know what the fuck they were gonna do the whole time.
One of like it wasn't actually on Sports Science, but it was like a show like that. Or maybe it was Sports Science. No, it wasn't. It was something similar though. And they were actually like, who has the hardest strike, like the hardest kick. Was it a Muay Thai guy, a Taekwondo guy? They had a capoeira guy, and I think they might have had a boxer too for a punch just to see what was the hardest. And the capoeira guy actually generates the most force
because he's spinning his whole body.
Yeah. Not just the. I mean, and some of the other. I mean, the Muay Thai guy has a fucking strong one. Even the Taekwondo guy, like there's all these kicks are gonna fucking hurt you or knock you out if they hit you in the face. Yeah. But the one that generated the most force and everything was the capoeira guy, and I think he. If I remember correctly, he also got it around the quickest too. Huh. So like he could hit you the quickest as well. And I don't know what. Again, I'm not exactly sure when they counted the movement as the strike. You know, because they're always moving.
Because theoretically, the strongest capoeira attack should be the most predictable because it should be coming from, you know, like 180 degrees.
More or less. This one was. It seemed like well. I was gonna say
just like like the hook is stronger
360.
because it gets more more distance, but it's also more predictable. That's why you don't usually lead in with a hook.
Yeah.
But capoeira is one of those things that I always thought and I know I'm probably pronouncing it completely wrong. I've always been so intrigued by it. It's always so interesting, and it's always so I don't know. It's the thing that you always end up seeing in kung fu movies or kung fu video games or whatever. They always have a guy who does dance fighting, and that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
And I like it because it's almost like Drunken Master, where you can't tell where the fuck they're gonna come from, and there's just so much to it.
That's without a doubt, and that's the idea behind it too. Is that all the moves are kind of masked in the dance, so you don't know what's coming from where and everything.
Also, so slaves were able to train in fighting without looking like they were training and fighting.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's very, very secretive movements.
Have you ever seen Ong Bak Thai Warrior?
I've seen one of them. I don't know if it was a part 1, part 2, whatever. I did see Ong Bak.
They did have a sequel, and supposedly it was kind of silly.
I'm pretty sure it was the first one I saw. Right before we get into it, though, Only the Strong was the big capoeira movie of the 90s or something
really?
like that. It was the Karate Kid for capoeira and shit.
I'll have to watch it.
It was pretty cool. Again, in the 90s it was awesome. I haven't seen it in 15 years, so who the fuck knows?
I know
Maybe it sucks.
In Ong Bak Thai Warrior, there's a scene where basically this one guy is hoping to exploit this guy from this small Thai village by making him fight, because he knows that Muay Thai is the strongest fighting style. And so he basically tricks him into fighting for to get money, basically. And at one point he fights this breakdance fighter, that they're probably trying to harken a little bit of capoeira in there. And at one point he knocks the guy the fuck out. I think he does a knee directly to the guy's head. And Ong Bak, starring Tony Jaa, he does all his own stunts. And so he's really kicking a dude in the head, and you can actually see it's a guy, he has big floppy hair, the guy he's fighting. He's wearing a helmet under this floppy hair, so you get fucking nailed directly in the head. And that's one of the best things about that movie, is they do all their own stunts, and every once in a while it will fall apart, and you kind of see oh, that's why that guy did not die, But still, it's so remarkable to see him do these, he'll do jumps across for 10-foot jumps and elbow someone in the fucking skull. And as they're falling, you'll see, oh, they're wearing a hat, and that hat had a helmet under it, and it falls off or whatever. But
there was I remember that one that was dope, and there was also the Protector.
Yeah, the Protector was great. I love the Protector.
He's I like any of the ones that do their own stunts, stuff like that, and everything. And they're really trying to show what they're doing, and it's not a whole bunch of just cables and shit like that. Jackie Chan was one of the ones. I don't know if he probably didn't pioneer it. Maybe he did. I don't know. But he was just known for that, though, doing all his own stunts and stuff. I remember at the end of Rumble in the Bronx, I believe it was, they show him doing a stunt jumping either off a bridge or from bars to
between
bars.
two buildings or whatever.
And he actually had broken his foot during filming it, so they just had basically a plastic wrap over the cast that would just look like his shoe and socks.
Yeah.
And he was still doing the stunts and everything with a fucking cast on his foot, basically.
Well, so 2 stories about both the people we talked about. So going back to Tony Jaa, he while he does all his own stunts, and it's an amazing thing, and he's a super athlete. For promotions for Ong Bak, he did they would take up conference rooms, and he would perform one of the crazy fight scenes from that with other stunt fighters. And including walking on people's heads and shit. He's crazy. But in production for Ong Bak 2, or maybe it might have even been a third one, I don't know if they made a third one, he was kidnapped by basically Thailand's mob.
I was gonna say real life kidnapped.
Yeah, and they held him for ransom, and they made him Ong Bak, O-N-G. They made him basically demand more money for his movie, and I don't know if it was actually him doing it or whatever. Yeah,
I can't type from this angle. I'm honestly fucking this up.
Yeah, they he literally got kidnapped in order to demand more money. And like, it's crazy to think that like since this movie is being made in Thailand, like there's still a lot of like Thailand politics that come into like making that and stuff, and it's like it's so like wild to think of.
Everybody wants their cut.
Oh, it actually
man.
does it show his full name there? That was really interesting. I never actually saw his like real name.
Yeah, there was an Anbach 3.
Go back. Oh, sorry. It actually shows his real name, because he always goes by Tony Jha. Evidently his real name is, and I'm going to totally pronounce this wrong, Tachakorn Yeram, which is funny because Korn
seems pretty on point.
Yeah, Korn is actually the name of his elephant in The Protector.
In The Protector.
Yeah. Really good movies, but then also...
There's A Protector 2, apparently. Came out last year.
Yeah, they just kept making sequels for his big movies, yeah.
Well, I mean, again, it's just like with music. It's like, fuck it works. Let's make another one.
Yeah, but this looks nothing.
This one doesn't look like it got pretty shitty.
It looks like
reviews.
someone is wearing like the outfit that Lilu wore in The Fifth Element. Like, it doesn't look like the same sort of movie at all. But the first movie was about like finding honor and like how like the Buddhist people in Thailand like raise the elephant and they venerate the elephant, and it was like really big on that. And like it looks like this second one is like Robert Rodriguez movie with
you think that's who he's protecting?
Yeah, and maybe now he's just protecting this woman with large breasts.
Protect this half naked chick. Don't catcall her, but protect her. That's cool.
But so. Going to Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan studied at this like huge Chinese like acting school, in which he was taken in as the star child basically, and his parents basically gave up their rights to be his protector, and allowed the people who ran the school to be his protector, and basically everything that he did, like he had to be like the greatest representation of that school. So if someone fucked up, that person would get punished, but so would Jackie Chan. And all this shit would happen to him, and that's why he's like the greatest, most like humble person, is because like that's how he was like modeled throughout his life. Like,
how old was he when he first started going to this school?
I don't know.
I
think it was
parents had to give up rights basically.
I think it was all throughout his childhood, and like he was, they would like beat him with like a switch or whatever.
He was literally Neo. He was the one.
Yeah, right. When
he was born, they're like, "Well, you're gonna be the one, so hope you enjoy this."
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And like that's why he's so humble about everything, and like he will stay, like if he's shooting a movie somewhere, he'll stay for hours and sign every autograph of everyone waiting before like leaving. Like he feels horrible having to leave early, and like he feels like obligated to everyone. It's so wild to like think about, because like I don't even feel obligated to myself sometimes, like let alone like everyone around me, no matter who I've met. Like they say there's only a certain number of people that you can even recognize as like tangible real people, that you would never like if you knew your friend was in front of you, you wouldn't fucking yell at them if they cut you off, but you'll gladly threaten someone's life if you don't know who the hell they are when they cut you off. So, like...
Until you get stuck with them at the next red light and you're just looking at him like,
yeah. You're like, no, I was singing along. I was singing along really angrily. And, so, like, it's crazy to think, like, in a world where we can't even recognize the person who cuts us off as a human being, that he recognizes everyone as, like, precious human beings who need, like, attention.
That's very, very Buddhist.
Yeah.
Esque. Especially just with, like insects as well. Like those fucking, whatever worms they were.
Flatworms,
they'd be careful to not, like, step on one. Which I guess would be really hard for them. They're probably killing those motherfuckers all the time. They don't even know it.
Dropping roundworms like it's going out of style.
And it's a good thing they don't have the internet in those at these fucking, monasteries. And was there, it might have been, was it an episode of Dexter that actually did have like it was like a more of a modern Buddhist retreat, and they were like trying to get like the internet installed.
that totally happens, and like that's weird to think of, that there's like an IT guy at like monasteries and stuff like that. You know? Like.
But there was also, it took place in like fucking LA, so who knows. Again, I'm not sure if it was Dexter. It might have been some other fucking weird show I was watching. I don't want to say I've given up on Dexter, but I'm in like season 3 and I haven't watched it in like a month or so.
A lot of people said that after like a few seasons, the show just got really bad.
Yeah, but then what almost made me start watching in the first place is because I remember when season, I think 5, people were like, it got really good again or something. I'm like, and I can't just skip to season 5. So it's
Yeah.
like, do I really? I just don't want to have it in me to put up with what I'm watching now to get to season 5. I'm just like, whatever. So here we go again, saying we were gonna end, and fucking 20 minutes later, we can just do a part 2 to this. So thanks again to Matt for stopping by. We'll get him in again and actually talk a little more about what we wanted to begin with. He does. We've talked off air about like just something that he'd like to do as far as doing a book that has like I think heavily to do with the rapper Big L, and then like either translating it into some type of more like I don't know if it's gonna be like cultural relevance or more like more social whatever, but taking a lot of the lyrics and dissecting it however he is. And that's real cool to me because Big L's one of my favorite rappers and stuff. So that's cool. And also he's doing he's doing it for himself. He has like a book list that he's trying to go through, and he basically reads like fucking 3 a week or something like that. And I was like, oh, let me know what list this is. I want to, I talked about getting a Kindle and stuff like that. I would like some suggestions and stuff. And he's like pretty much halfway done with the list, and I still didn't order my Kindle yet. So I'm obviously never going to catch up, but it would be nice to check a few of them off. I'm trying to talk him into making like some type of Facebook page or an event, something like that, so other people that might not know that are interested but might not know where to start, be like, oh, what are some classes I should catch up on or reread again if I read them when I was a kid and now have a better understanding on stuff. Which ones can I go back to? So I'm gonna try to get him to post something like that. And yeah, that's it. There's probably some other shit I want to say. I'll remember it when I start recording. So thanks again, and happy Halloween if you listen to this tonight. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe. And we'll do this again. I was going to say some other time, but I can tell you exactly when it's going to be. It's going to be this time next week, when we're going to do this. So thanks again. Hit me up on Twitter at DJ Traction, online djtraction.com. If you want to see some pictures, go to Instagram at DJ Traction. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Eric?
And I'm the only Eric Fox Jackson in the world, so you'll figure it out. I have an art blog coming soon. It's getting a little held up again with work and everything and all my students.
Stupid life. Fucking life always gets in the way of shit. And life almost got in the way of this fucking podcast today because I've just recently been going back to... I've been training for a while now, but now I've been going back to doing jiu-jitsu. And it's your body just... It's different than you doing Muay Thai, so it's like I was so sore today after doing 2 jiu-jitsu classes yesterday, doing a gi and a no-gi. I woke up today almost barely able to move, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. I thought what it was going to be, like I was happy we had a guest, because I'm like, cool, they can talk to each other, and I could just kind of lay down here.
I can just sit over here and groan.
Yeah, pretty much. So, alright, that's it. Thanks, guys. See you this time. Same bat channel, same bat time, next bat week. Peace.